The United States. My father was in Vietnam in 1959. He was a 19-year-old non-lethal combat instructor. A lot of people don't know that the United States was in Vietnam as early as 1950. And he was there, luckily, right before things got really hot. His enlistment was over, and he got the hell up out of there because he had that much sense.
Yeah.
But the United States, since that time, I was born about 3 or 4 years later in 1963, the United States has bombed people all over the world, from Vietnam to Sudan. Right now, the United States is bombing Somalia, bombing Sudan. The United States is bombing boats off of Venezuela. The United States is complicit in the horrific events in Palestine. I'm not understanding this blind spot of hubris of the American people. I'm not understanding the moral authority. When I hear people call into your show and talk about Putin's going to take this or Poland, I'm no Putin apologist. I'm simply saying Putin's geopolitical calculus is different. Putin is not separated by two oceans with two fore and aft vassal states, as in Canada and Mexico. Putin is surrounded by 4 nuclear powers: Pakistan, India, North Korea, and China. His geopolitical calculus is entirely different. I'm not understanding this. The United States has bombed Afghanistan, Iran, killed millions of people, thousands and thousands of miles away. What is this? Are the American is the American public looking at this globally? Are we looking at, as a people, how the world views us right now? We talk about elections and democracy all over the world, but look at what we're doing to our own. Gerrymandering, nullifying of voting rights. The Voting Rights Act, as it was passed, I believe it was 65 or 64, I forget, civil rights, voting rights. But the thing is that it is nothing like what it looked like. It has been diluted to the point where it's almost non-existent. Yeah. Tell me, Tom, what am I missing?
I'm not sure you're missing anything, Kenyatta. I've not throughout my life. I have not been a big fan of American foreign policy. I was my political awareness was really birthed in the crucible of anti-Vietnam War work. So I share your perspective. I get that. In terms of the parties, it just seems to me that we have one political party that has abandoned democracy, any idea of democracy, and that's a tragedy. That's not to say that the Democratic Party is perfect or fully embraces democracy. Just ask anybody just ask Bernie Sanders, but who's also an independent like you, Kenyatta. Kenyatta, I got to run. I'm sorry.
Okay, but these are perilous times, my friend.
They are. Yeah. Keep writing that great Substack newsletter. Thank you. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
The Thom Hartmann Book Club is Health Justice Now, Single Payer and What Comes Next by Timothy Faust. And this is from the introduction. A secret scream rings through America. It rings down the sterile fluorescent hallways of our hospitals. It rings over our rural towns and our native reservations. It rings through our prisons, the bellies of our great cities. It rings in our farms and our fields, our streets and our sewers, our bodies and our blood. And we are cursed to never hear it clearly until, at last, we realize it has been our own mouth screaming and we are lost. A child born today inherits, in that secret, a new American squalor, the skeletal remains of the American cities, the bleached bones of the American suburbs. This secret is a birthright of continual exploitation, pumped for labor and drained of cash and then punished for the resulting suffering. Punished for being hungry, punished for being sick, punished for being pregnant, punished for being poor, punished for being black or brown, punished for being queer, for being unlucky, for being. At the base of that suffering is lodged a little truth, like a knot in the stomach. In America, sickness makes you poor, and poorness makes you sick. This is a book about that relationship and why it happens, and why it's unnecessary, and what we can do to fix it. The cosmic whirling of God's great slot machine has not determined that some people are fated to suffer while others flourish. We have the resources to take care of everyone, and yet we refuse to do so. Your medical debt and medical bills are unnecessary, but we have chosen to make them necessary. These are structural problems with structural causes, and many of them share roots in how we pay for health care. This is a book about health care and health finance. They are different. Health care is anything that helps you stay safe and healthy. It's a kind of freedom from and within your own body. Health finance is the method by which we as a country pay for that freedom and by which we decide who gets to have it and who doesn't. Health care is more than what happens to you in the hospital. Health care is whether your home makes you sick, or your food makes you sick, or your environment makes you sick, or whether you have enough money to afford the things that keep you healthy. In America, the structure of corporate health care has convinced us that some people deserve health care and some people don't. This is a book about that corporate health finance, about private insurance and private insurers. For half a century, they've convinced us that they're the only things that keep us or could ever keep us from the utter financial ruination of illness. They've sold us different inadequate insurance plans and persuaded us that this is a form of great liberty, while chipping away at our freedoms for profit and holding our bodies and our children's bodies hostage. This is a book about single-payer health care, a health finance model in which we pool our abundant collective resources to provide health care to all people. It is a common model across the world. As we will discuss in this book, we have the potential not just to enact a single-payer program in America, but to build the greatest health care program among any so-called developed democracy. Here is my profession of faith. I believe beyond any doubt that single payer is demonstrably sound and imminently feasible. I believe a properly ambitious and well-structured single-payer program will do more than any other American social program of this generation to soothe the burns, to resuscitate the spirit, to nourish the moral will of the American people. I believe it will loosen the loathsome manacles of American health finance, an exploitative institution that profits by plundering from us our own bodily autonomy, and that anchors a larger exploitation that holds those whom we love as captive leverage to guarantee our servitude to abusive employers or domestic partners, to those who seek to dominate us both in the office and in the hospital. I believe this nation owes its people, whose labor has created its rich banquet, the safety and agency of health care. I believe this health care is greater in scope than that which happens upon an operating table. I believe that housing, food, income, and more, the components of basic human dignity, are health care. And I believe our work is that of striving toward justice for all people. And I therefore believe, I have to believe, that single-payer health care is our moral imperative. Single-payer is our tool. Single-payer is our weapon. Single-payer is our first step. But single payer on its own is not the goal. This book is about health justice. Healthcare is personal, so I want to start this book personally by introducing two friends of mine, Steve Way and Kyle Kolick. They're two guys about my age, I'm 30, who live in North New Jersey. They're sweet, gentle people and probably the most charismatic pair of friends I've met my entire life. They make me laugh until my face hurts, and we like watching pro wrestling together. They're also being utterly broken by our American healthcare system, and it's keeping them from living their lives. Steve has muscular dystrophy. The muscle and tissues that hold his body together are eating themselves. He's doing pretty good, all things considered. He beat his original life expectancy of 18, and now probably has a long life ahead of him. Steve needs a wheelchair to move and a ventilator to help him breathe. The book, Health Justice Now, Timothy Faust.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, top of the Friday to you. TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak. It is the end of the week and the beginning of the weekend here. And it's Anything Goes Friday. No guests, just you and me all day. I got a few stories to share with you, but other than that, whatever you'd like to talk about, pigeons, UFOs, Donald Trump, they all kind of fall in the same category, right? Just a few announcements. Our Chicago event is sold out officially. The LA event, a conversation with Thom Hartmann, Democracy, Justice, and the American Dream with Greg Palast, is October 18th on No King's Day. You can sign up for that. They've got a fairly large auditorium. You can sign up over at kpfk.org. There's a venue announcement there. Also in San Diego on October 17th, I'll be in San Diego speaking at the Columbus Club, and that is put on by KNSJ, our San Diego affiliate, and their website is news.knsj.org. So check that out. Also, a lot to talk about today in our first hour, when justice becomes revenge. I'll get to that in a moment. Also, is Norway feeling a chill of revenge today? Trump didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. And so a lot of people are scratching their heads wondering, what's he going to do? Is he going to put tariffs on Norway? Is he going to, make harsh demands on NATO? Is he going to brand Norway an enemy of peace? And also plenary power, the final step in Donald Trump's American autocracy. So a lot there. A deep red governor in the second hour of our program is ripping Texas for sending troops to Chicago. He says Oklahomans would lose their minds. Also, Geeky Science, find out what the Planetary Health Diet, the PhD, would do to global health. You'll be shocked. And Indivisible is among those speaking out as the Trump administration just targeted. Indivisible is the main sponsor for October 18, No King's Day. The Trump administration just targeted them as possible sponsors of terrorism. Seriously. And the alarm is setting in as Trump is using Antifa as a foreign terrorist designation. My dad volunteered for World War II. He was definitely anti-fascist. It's pretty amazing. So just, a couple of quick things here. As Donald Trump's Justice Department is turning mortgage fraud into a political weapon, they've gone after Attorney General Letitia James of New York, Governor Lisa Cook of the Federal Reserve. Senator Adam Schiff has not yet been formally charged, but it looks like he's in the crosshairs. Same with Lisa Cook. Reports show that Lori Chavez de Remer, who is from this neck of the woods, She is now the labor secretary, Donald Trump's labor secretary, that she actually clicked the little box saying this house will be my primary residence when it wasn't. Also, a reality TV star, now head of our transportation department, Sean Duffy, same deal. He apparently committed the same so-called mortgage fraud that Trump wants to prosecute Letitia James for. And the guy who runs the EPA, Lee Zeldin, apparently he did the same thing too, at least according to press reports. None of them, of course, are being prosecuted. You know, what's the, I think it was Oscar Benavides, the old South American dictator guy, who said, "For my friends, everything, for my enemies, the law." Yeah, well, here we are. And Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Prize for Peace, it was announced this morning. She is a Venezuelan opposition leader who risked her life and continues to risk her life to stand up to Maduro and try to rebuild democracy in Venezuela. So Venezuela, where Donald Trump is blowing up boats off the coast filled with fishermen and tourists and God only knows what. Maybe drug runners, who knows? So, you know, is the UN going to do anything about this? How is Norway going to respond? How should we all respond? Great questions all. Meanwhile, my daily post, excuse me just a second here, my daily post over at HartmannReport.com is titled "Plenary Power, the Final Step in Trump's American Autocracy." This is pretty mind-boggling. Yesterday, one of Trump's assistant attorneys, one of his, guys in federal court, said that Trump cannot be challenged by the courts. Trump's decisions are final. This all came out of a guy named Carl Schmitt. He was the philosopher king of the Nazi party back in the 1930s. He was the guy who advised Hitler after the Reichstag fire to use states of emergency to acquire executive power that the Constitution of the Weimar Republic wouldn't otherwise give him. He said famously, "There is no law, there is just power," a phrase that J.D. Vance recently echoed, attributing it to Carl Schmitt. Second, he said that Carl Schmitt said that power must be absolute. And third, he said that the way you get past guardrails built into constitutional government is by declaring states of emergency. And that's what Trump is trying to do, or talking about doing, with the Insurrection Act. I mean, this is just crazy stuff. For your friends, everything, for your enemies, the law. I mean, here, Trump couldn't tell Carl Schmitt from Fred Flintstone, but he instinctively understands this guy's theories. I mean, for example, flouting the Hatch Act. It's 2 years in prison for trying to sell Teslas from the front of the White House. But Trump just did it right in front of God and the whole world and says, I dare you. I mean, there are both American and international laws against killing civilians, using your military to kill civilians without trial and without a declaration of war. Trump says, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. The Constitution says a president may be impeached for bribery. And so Donald Trump takes an alleged bribe in this jet from Qatar, and then he takes $2 billion as an investment in his little family's crypto business in exchange for giving high-tech chips to the United Arab Emirates in violation of American national security. I mean, can you imagine if a Democrat did that, if Joe Biden did that? He's exempting companies that give him gifts or money from antitrust regulations, tariffs, and Foreign Corrupt Practices Act enforcement. And now he's going to Carl Schmitt's second primary doctrine, which is there's only two kinds of people in the world: your friends and your enemies. You give your friends everything, you punish your enemies relentlessly. Again, Carl Schmitt was the guy who taught Hitler how to be Hitler. And Trump is doing this. He's characterizing Democrats and using terms that have never been used before by any president. In fact, George Washington warned against. And his friends, he lets them get away with anything they want. Take $50,000 bribe from the FBI? No problem. You could be in charge of ICE. Look the other way as Jeffrey Epstein and his friends, possibly including his best friend, rape young girls in Florida for 8 years while you're the state's attorney general? Pam Bondi can do no wrong. Donald Trump's friends, but now he's preparing this sledgehammer, and that is the Insurrection Act. And if he succeeds in invoking the Insurrection Act, and if the 6 cowardly, frightened, terrified little Republicans on the U.S. Supreme Court roll over whimpering and go along with him, then America really and truly will be screwed. I mean, this is when we become a full-out dictatorship. Not that we're not damn close right now. I mean, now he's talking about investigating Act Blue and investigating Indivisible and all this. I mean, so far, we haven't given him the excuse. Here in Portland, we're still putting flowers in front of the ICE building and dancing with furries. Jimmy Kimmel apparently did this thing last night on that. But the day will come, I think. He's ramping up provocations, him and Miller and Noem and Homan. They are ramping up the provocations worse and worse and worse every day. Eventually, people are going to break and fight back. And when that happens, he's going to bring down the hammer.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Keep an eye out. This is an amazing, difficult, extraordinary time. I never thought I'd live to see this day. What say you? And welcome back. Picking up your calls here. Katie in Hamul, California. Hey, Katie, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Well, I feel like this is kind of a trivial academic question, and certainly after that rant, I wanted to quietly just hang up the phone.
That's quite all right.
I've had this buzzing around in my head, and particularly it was really animated in my head after Charlie Kirk's shooting. Is it so noble, and this has been going on for some years, is it really so noble, a la Joe Rogan and all of that crew, to platform people who already have, I was trying to say it to Mateo and said it just makes sense, who already have an enormous platform. Bill Maher does this. And now what kind of really tipped me over was, I mean, they can do anything they want. I just want to, because, you know, the free speech issue is fine. But the nobility of it is, I just think, you know, horse hockey. Because I think mostly it's just done for ratings or not in good faith.
Katie, I'm not understanding what you're talking about. Can you explain?
Yeah, I want to know that because of this, what does it do to the society when platforming people who want to destroy our democracy? Gavin Newsom said, I'm having all these people on, without really having, true debate. Yeah. I mean, is it really that noble that Joe Rogan has Sanjay Gupta on with no intention of letting him really get his point across, or that, Charlie Kirk, who I read an excellent breakdown of how he learned all the debate techniques. It wasn't done in good faith. It's done for ratings. Yeah. And, you debate people in good faith. And Gavin Newsom, God knows what he's doing, but, when he said, I felt like talking to Steve Bannon, I ended up feeling like I was talking to Bernie Sanders. And I'm going, this is not healthy. And so these programs get such lauded and praised for their opening up their platform to people that are constantly getting their point across. They're not some quiet voice that, we finally heard him on Joe Rogan or on, whatever, Gavin Newsom. Yeah. So it's just, I don't think it's all that healthy or laudable, and I guess that's why I said it was kind of a mushy question. I just want to know what you think. These are not true debates. Well,
I think it's important to remember that Bill Maher and Joe Rogan are not debating societies. They're running for-profit businesses, and the amount of money they make depends on how many eyeballs or ears they can get And so, the higher the profile of the person, the
My
higher
point.
the likelihood.
Bad faith.
Well, I'm not sure it's bad faith. I think it's profit-seeking.
Well, bad faith when they present
Now,
themselves
with
as
Gavin Newsom,
giving a platform.
Yeah, with Gavin Newsom, I don't think he was doing it to make the money. I think Gavin Newsom was doing it to try to get more listeners. He wants to expand the base for his podcast. And in that regard, it might have been a pretty slick trick.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of the same as more money.
Yeah, I get it. But, on the other hand, I think his argument, I can't speak for Gavin Newsom, but were I him in that circumstance, I would say, this is just a way of getting more people to listen to what I think is an important message. But, it's one of the reasons why I've debated them. But I don't know. Katie, thank you. Good question. Thank you. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So back when Donald Trump debated Kamala Harris, he was asked about world leaders and whatnot, and he went off on this thing praising a guy named Viktor Orban and saying he's a tough guy, he's smart, he's the prime minister of Hungary, and he loves me, basically. So who is Viktor Orban? Well, it turns out Viktor Orban is a guy who took over Hungary in a regular election, the prime minister, and then turned it into basically a neo-fascist paradise for right-wingers. All the media is now controlled by right-wing oligarchs. He's packed the courts. He's changed the Constitution so that they have things like gerrymandering and voter suppression, so he always wins every election. He throws people in jail for criticizing him, even on Facebook. I mean, this is what Hungary has become. Fox News loves it. Tucker Carlson did his show from there for a week, and that's what Donald Trump wants to do to America. You can read the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Trump's New Hero, the strong man who crushed democracy in Hungary. Check it out.
You can hear it coming down the line, a march, not for freedom, but for power. There's a man in a gold tower saying law's just a word. Got his preachers and his princes twisting every truth they heard. He's got a book from the shadows where the old right burn, and the page he's reading from's the one where justice turns. Marching, marching, boots on the floor. Trump's march toward plenary power, keeping score. Friends to the banquet, enemies to the pyre. The law's just smoke in a world on fire. Now JD's quoting Schmidt by name, and Noom's lighting that old flame. They call it order, they call it right, but it's the same old fire in the night. There is no law, there's only might. That's what the jurors wrote before the light. The Reichstag burned, the people cried, and the furious smiled while justice died. Now he's reaching for that act of insurrection, trying to call it resurrection, but the ghosts of 33 know that sound. That's a march of freedom going down.
22 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So, anything goes weekend here. What's on your mind today? Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for always letting us get the word out on what's happening. There's an incredible music fest in Boston at Davis Square today. Protest bands, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They get invited to this. And there are bands from around the world invited to play at this. But I have some really great, and from around our country, bands invited. My daughter's band got invited. I'm happy to say Mayday Marching Band is playing there Saturday.
Very cool.
And, yeah, I love it. And I just, if people want really great music, they've got 3 days of it in Boston. So
that's marvelous.
No, you can live stream. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to yell.
No, it's great.
It can be
it's great.
the Honk Fest can be
Okay.
streamed. And then one last thing, Joshua Aaron, who had an app called Ice Block that would tell the locations of ice to help migrants avoid the areas where ice was. Well, Apple Tim Cook bowed to the tyrant Trump, and he just removed it. And I say I believe there is a boycott for Apple. Yeah. Unsubscribe to Apple TV. Get the word out on social media. Don't buy any Apple products.
Yeah.
And
I was so upset by that there's a little app on your iPhone called Apple Support, and I clicked on it, and it opens first you talk to the AI machine, and then you can say I want to talk to a human being. It says, "What's your problem?" And I said, "My problem is that I'm upset that Apple took down the Ice Block app." And it said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Let you talk to a human being." And so it connected me to a human being. And he said, "How can I help you? This is tech support." And I said, I'm very upset that you guys took down the Ice Block app from the App Store. I think it's wrong." And he's like, "Do you have a technical question?" And I said, "No, but this is the only way I know of to actually talk to a human being at Apple. So would you please convey the message?" And he said, "Okay, I'll do that." And he disconnected me.
Thank you. I'm going to do that too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bondi says that Aaron is not protected under the Constitution. And she says
what is not protected under the Constitution?
His free speech. She says he can't have that app. She's going to prosecute him, and she's warning him to watch out. Yeah. So, I mean, everything they do is illegal. But
and the app it's just like Waze. I mean, it's a crowdsourced app. Waze tells you where the traffic lights are and where the cops are running breathalyzer tests. This is and by the way, you don't have to be a quote illegal immigrant to want to use this app. I mean, I would want to use the app just to avoid the areas where there's hassles.
Yes, me too. And they're all around us in every town. Berwyn, Cicero, Broadview. And my husband is so upset about everything going on. He wants us to go to the Mexican restaurants this weekend that are empty because everyone's terrified.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
Yeah, we have a little family-owned Mexican restaurant. It's actually in Vancouver, right across the river from us, which is because we live in North Portland. It's a little easier to get to. And, we've been patronizing it, trying to get there every week, because to support them.
They need our help.
I mean, it's amazing.
It's awful around here.
Yeah, it
I'm
really
proud of
is.
our governor, though.
Yeah, me too. JB Pritzker for president. Put me at the front of the list there. So Jessica, thanks a lot for the call. It's great to hear from you. It's 27 minutes past the hour. It's Anything Goes weekend. I'll be back with your calls. What's on your mind today? We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be right back with more of the news of the day. Well, actually, just with your calls on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. For the Thom Hartmann Book Club today, it's Waking the Witch, Reflections on Women, Magic, and Power by Pam Grossman. This is from the introduction. Witches have always walked among us, populating societies and storyscapes across the globe for thousands of years. From Circe to Hermione, from Morgan Le Fay to Marie Laveau, the witch has long existed in the tales we tell about ladies with strange powers who can harm or heal. And although people of all genders have been considered witches, It's a word that is now usually associated with women. Throughout most of history, she has someone to fear, an uncanny other who threatens our safety or manipulates reality for her own mercurial purposes. She's a pariah, a persona non grata, a boogie woman to defeat and discard. Although she's often been deemed a destructive entity, in actuality, a witchy woman has historically been far more susceptible to attack than an inflictor of violence herself. As with other terrifying outsiders, she occupies a paradoxical role in cultural consciousness as both vicious aggressor and vulnerable prey. Over the past 150 years or so, however, the witch has done another magic trick by turning from a fright into a figure of inspiration. She is now as likely to be the heroine of your favorite TV show as she is its villain. She might show up in the form of your Wiccan co-worker or the beloved musician who gives off a sorceress vibe in videos or on stage. There's also a chance that she is you, and that witch is an identity you've taken upon yourself for any number of reasons, heartfelt or flippant, public or private. Today, more women than ever are choosing the way of the witch, whether literally or symbolically. They're floating down catwalks and sidewalks in gauzy black clothing and adorning themselves with Pinterest-worthy pentagrams and crystals. They're filling up movie theaters to watch witchy films and gathering in back rooms and backyards to do rituals, consult tarot cards, and set life-altering intentions. They're marching in the streets with Hex the Patriarchy placards and casting spells each month to try to constrain the commander-in-chief. Year after year, articles keep proclaiming it's the season of the witch, as journalists try to wrap their heads around the mushrooming witch trend. And all of this begs the question, why? Why do witches matter? Why are they seemingly everywhere right now? What exactly are they? And why the hell won't they go away? I get asked such things over and over, and you would think that after a lifetime of studying and writing about witches, as well as hosting a witch-themed podcast and being a practitioner of witchcraft myself, my answers would be succinct. In fact, I find that the more I work with the witch, the more complex she becomes. Hers is a slippery spirit. Try to pin her down and she'll only recede further into the dark, deep wood. I do know this for sure, though. Show me your witches, and I'll show you your feelings about women. The fact that the resurgence of feminism and the popularity of the witch are ascending at the same time is no coincidence. The two are reflections of each other. That said, this current witch wave is nothing new. I was a teen in the 1990s, the decade that brought us such pop culture as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed, and The Craft. Not to mention riot girls and third-wave feminists who taught me that female power could come in a variety of colors and sexualities. I learned that women could lead a revolution while wearing lipstick and combat boots, and sometimes even a cloak. But my own witchly awakening came at an even earlier age. Morganville, New Jersey, where I was raised, was a solidly suburban town, but it retained enough natural land features back then to still feel a little bit scruffy in spots. We had a small patch of woods in our backyard that abutted a horse farm, and the two were separated by a wisp of running water that we could cross via a plank of wood. When we were little, my older sister Emily and I would sometimes venture to the other side where we could feed the horses, an act that still scares me to this day, and pick fistfuls of clover. But the majority of our time was spent on our side of the stream, threading ourselves through the thicket of trees that served as our personal forest. In one corner of the yard, a giant puddle would form whenever it rained, surrounded by a border of ferns. We called this spot our magical place. That it would vanish and then reappear only added to its mystery. It was a portal to the unknown. These woods are where I first remember doing magic, entering that state of deep play where imaginative action becomes reality. I would spend hours out there creating rituals with rocks and sticks, drawing secret symbols in the dirt, losing all track of time. It was a space that felt holy and wild, yet still strangely safe. As we age, we're supposed to stop filling our heads with such nonsense. Unicorns are to be traded in for Barbie dolls, though both are mythical creatures to be sure. We lose our tooth. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
Born in a mansion of winners and losers, kindness was weakness, shame never shown. Roy Cohn whispered, attack and destroy, a gilded facade built on failure alone. The hunger for power, the need for control, a perfect machine for a heart without soul. The last American president. Is this how the story ends? Democracy breaking, the truth forsaken. We rise or we descend. Reform, resist, remember. The call is heaven sent. Or we'll write the history books of the last American president. Decades in motion, the billionaires plan. Nixon to Reagan, the courts in their hands.
35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Chris in Littleton, Colorado. Hey, Chris, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. The power of the people can absolutely change governments. It's what American democracy is based on. It happened in 1776 and many times since then on different issues.
I agree.
Critical mass is 3%.
3.5%, according to Erica Chenoweth.
Oh, okay. When 3.5% of the population is against something, cowardly politicians with no principles become more afraid of being voted out of office than they are of Trump. We are near 3% now.
Yeah, it's actually what she pointed out is when 3.5% of people show up in the streets or engage in a concerted action. But yeah, I get your point, Chris. I get your point.
No King's nationwide protest is October 18th.
Yep.
The last one was millions.
Yep.
This one is expected to double that.
I hope so.
If you care about your future or American democracy, be there or be square.
There you go.
Info@nokings.org.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, thank you. Thank you very much for that PSA. Appreciate it. There you go. Denise in Folsom, California. Hey, Denise, what's on your mind today?
What's on my mind today? Today is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Last night I listened to Adam Schiff say we have to really dissect her a little bit. Who voted for the big, beautiful bill? She did. So my thought on Marjorie Taylor Greene is she's like a snake. You got to watch out for her, just like Donald Trump. She voted for the big, beautiful bill. She wanted to run for governor of Georgia, decided to pull out, and is trying to run again to reseat her again in Congress. Mm-hmm. So why is she doing this, Tom? Why is she doing this? Because her kids' insurance is going to go up, and she's not thinking of the regular. So that's what Adam Schiff said last time, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time with this woman. She's another Nancy Mace. She portrays something, and then she switches it back right. And it scares me when I see them doing this. How do you feel about that?
Well, for people who don't know what you're talking about, Denise, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is hardcore MAGA all the way and has always voted to repeal Obamacare, but her kids are on Obamacare. And one of her kids just got a notice that his insurance premium was about to double. And she realized that that was because the big, beautiful bill cuts the Obamacare subsidies. Or actually, maybe it's not even the big, beautiful bill. Maybe they just, I think they just expired after 5 years. And so, with them expiring, her kids' insurance premiums are going to go up. So she's agreeing now with Democrats that in order to reopen the government, the Republicans should cave in and renew the Obamacare subsidies. That's got, Republicans freaked out, but I think she's just being, actually, I think she's politically smart.
Yeah, I think she's campaigning right now. That's what she's doing.
I agree.
She's starting her campaign.
I agree. And, if she's going to join Democrats on this, I'll take it. I mean,
I will too, as long as she doesn't change down the road if she gets back in and does a Nancy Mace thing where she switches again. That's what frightens me. These guys, people have short memories.
Yeah, my problem with Nancy Mace is that she looks for the people who are the weakest and the most vulnerable, and then just attacks them mercilessly. In this case, trans people. And Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't so much done that. I mean, she supported the insurrectionists. She's supported an awful lot of terrible stuff. And she's, kind of MAGA all the way. But correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I am. But I haven't seen her, going after the queer community as aggressive. But that's pretty much all Nancy Mace does now, is stand in front of bathroom signs and freak out.
Yeah.
So I see Nancy Mace as just a cruel, pathetic, political opportunist, whereas I think Marjorie Taylor Greene actually believes this BS.
She's a made-up new image. Yeah, and she's a made-up new image, with the hair up and the pearls and everything. No cross, but now it's the pearls and stuff, because she's trying to be like, Jackie Onassis or whoever. I
also think Nancy Mace is badly wounded. I think that she's suffering some serious psychological wounds.
Do you trust Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tom? Do you trust her now, though?
No.
Yeah, see, and that's what you just can't trust them, because they all, it scares me, and I'm hoping that the people in her district understand not to trust her, because she hasn't done anything really good.
Well, I think this position is actually going to help her in her district, because, it's just one of those little small standing up to power.
Why did she decide not to run for governor there of Georgia?
Well, because it was obvious she couldn't win. Denise, I got to move along, but thanks for the call. Good talking to you. Carlos in Carson, California. Hey, Carlos, what's on your mind today?
Good morning. Well, listen, I voted for Trump, but I've been hearing recently in certain circles that he's going to be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
No, he's not.
That is so ludicrous. The man has endorsed the carnage in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
He's providing military equipment to Ukraine, and he's deploying the troops on our streets, which are going to become very repressive of people. And when they start raiding and taking people away, they're going to take a lot of innocent people. That is not peace to me.
Yeah.
And that is very dangerous what he's doing with the gradual normalization of the military in the streets. There's no justification for the troops on our streets.
So, Carlos, are you regretting your vote for Trump?
Yes, I do, but I wouldn't have voted for the left either with all the DEI policies. See, I don't know where to go anymore. Both sides are treasonous to the American people.
So explain something to me, Carlos. What DEI says is if you are looking for, let's say, a new person to work at the IRS to audit tax returns. So you're looking at people who have CPA after their name, that you should expand your search beyond just the white people who traditionally apply for that, and make sure that you've got some black and brown people and some queer people and some women in there. In fact, women are the principal beneficiaries of these policies. But don't hire somebody who's not as well qualified. Hire the best qualified person, but just expand the spectrum of people that you're looking at. I don't understand what's wrong with that. Can you explain that to me?
I go with the expanding the spectrum.
Then you go with DEI.
I'm against the left, though. But where I'm against the left is where they teach white kids in schools in certain districts to hate themselves because they're white.
Wait a second, Carlos. Stop right there. Please tell me the language that was used to tell white people that they should hate themselves. Explain that to me.
Well, they say that they are innately racist, and that is, some people qualify for that qualification, but a lot of people don't.
Nobody is teaching children that they're innately racist, Carlos.
Sure, read the book by Rufo called Culture Wars, I believe.
Christopher Rufo is a liar. I mean, Rufo is a partisan right-wing hack. Come on, give me a break. He's not a teacher who's teaching. You know, what they object to is the accurate portrayal of the way that, you know, white people historically in America have trashed black people and Hispanic people, and women for that matter, and queer people. I mean, that's our history. What's wrong? You know, right now you've got Donald Trump at the Smithsonian taking down the picture of the slave whose back was all scarred up because, oh my God, we can't see that. Why not?
Yeah, historically, yes. In general,
what's wrong with teaching history, Carlos?
Oppress the minorities.
Don't you want your kids to understand the history of this country?
Yeah, but that no longer applies. Many white people have turned.
I'm talking about a history lesson. It no longer applies that the world is round. You know, Magellan blew that up. Don't you think they should learn that too?
Well, you know, I think a lot of people white people have come to their senses and say, yeah, you know, we oppressed the Indians and we took over areas we shouldn't have taken, countries we shouldn't have taken.
Then why do you object to it being taught in our schools?
No, but what they're actually teaching them, hey, you're innately, just because you're white, it don't matter.
They're not teaching that, Carlos. That's a lie that's being taught. That's a lie that is being promulgated on Fox News and in right-wing media circles and by people like Christopher Rufo. But it's a lie. There's not a single teacher in America who ever sat their white kids down and said, you guys are all racists and you should hate yourselves. Literally, there's not a single teacher who ever said that. If there were, they would all know her name or his name. They'd all be saying, oh, that Bill Johnson in Oklahoma City last week when he told those kids. There's not a single one they can quote. So they just make this crap up. And suckers, sadly, like you, Carlos, believe it.
He named specific districts and schools in his book. I don't remember what streets they were, but it was pretty credible.
Doesn't mean it's true. Doesn't mean it's true.
What about transgenderism being shoved down kids' throats, okay, in schools? Here in California, there were a couple of schools where there were actually demonstrations against that because they're trying to push all these transgender hormones on kids without parents' approval. There were measures, I believe they even
teachers can't give kids hormones, Carlos.
Come on now, hey!
Teachers are not physicians.
That's what you are.
Teachers are not physicians.
I'm for neither side, left or right, because they both work for the Illuminati to destroy our country, both left and right. Okay, I'll let you go, my friend. Bye.
All right. Carlos just hung up on me. All righty. 47 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. Stay tuned. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where smart people get their news. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
It's your headquarters for the Illuminati. No, don't say that. Yes, it is. No, it's not. We'll be right back. Stay with us. And welcome back. Michael in San Carlos. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, Tom, the infamous one here. I just wanted to ask you about, earlier this week you had Congressman Adam Smith on, and you had a caller that basically phoned in and was asking about the U.S. providing foreign aid and negotiating mineral rights or assistance to those countries. And I just wanted to, the GOP seems to advertise this as one of their strengths. Adam gave his position on this, and I wanted to get your thoughts on that, if we should be tying this to any sort of aid or how your feeling is on this.
Yeah. The caller was taking the somewhat Republican position that if we're going to give anything to any other country, we should get something back in return for it. What Adam Smith was saying was you should separate that. That's a transaction. That's basically a business deal with another country. You should separate that from actually giving people aid simply because they need aid. And I agree with that. Sure, if you've got a country, Congo, I believe it is, DRC has large lithium reserves. I could be wrong, but I think it's the DRC. And, if we're going to give them foreign aid, we should give them foreign aid. And if we can cut a deal with them to get access to the lithium reserves, we should cut the deal with them to get access to their lithium reserves. This is how pretty much every country does it, by the way. China is now, trying to cut deals with pretty much every country in Africa since we pulled out with, after South African billionaire Elon Musk destroyed the U.S. Agency for International Development because they had helped overturn apartheid back in the day in his native country. Yeah,
I agree. And I just think the optics are, when you start talking about America first, this is one of the things that at least the MAGA and the GOP people seem to cling to. And if you want to go one step further, if these items were to be removed, like U.S. aid to these countries, then those deals would go with it. So there is some strings to it that at some level makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be entirely transactional. I mean, when George W. Bush did PEPFAR and saved, an estimated 5 million lives, over the first 10 years, I believe it was, of that program, it was the anti-AIDS program largely in Africa. He didn't ask for anything in return. The cost to the United States was almost meaningless. I mean, it was a drop in the federal bucket. It was pennies from each one of us, literally pennies from each one of us. And it saved all these lives, and it created enormous goodwill for the United States across the continent and opened up all kinds of our other opportunities for, businesses to go in and cut deals, or even governments to, do things. But it wasn't done for the purpose of generating that goodwill. It was done for the purpose of saving millions of lives. And I think that we can do that. We should be doing that. We should be a moral force in the world as well as an economic and political force.
Right. Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is basically a case-by-case basis. I think that I agree with that. I also think that when there are ties that benefit the U.S., the Democratic Party at least should be advertising that to be able to show how they're taking care of the people here at home in addition to.
No, I get that. And perhaps the Democratic Party should, highlight the potential transactional nature of some of these things. But I don't think that, I think running your country like Donald Trump runs his business, everything has to benefit me or it never happens. I'm not even going to talk about it. I think that's very, very short-sighted. And we've never done that before, to the best of my knowledge. Michael, we didn't go into World War II saying, we'll help out if you give us something. Michael, thank you. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. We've all gotten so used to living in a country where people are trying to crowdfund, like, cancer research for children. St. Jude's is a wonderful charity, but we're the only developed country in the world that needs, where you have to go to people and beg for money in order to treat children with cancer. Or Shriners, another great charity, but shouldn't we all be funding children who are born with birth defects and problems like that? We're probably the only country in the world where you can sell your life insurance policy because Social Security doesn't cover your retirement. It's probably not happening anywhere else in the world. Or reverse mortgage your home because you can't afford it. This is crazy that we are living in a country where No Kid Hungry, a charity. You can read all about it. There's a whole op-ed I wrote about this over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled America's Sickest Reality Show, Crowdfunding Cancer Care While Billionaires Hoard Billions. Check it out.
Trump was rising, the cameras all set. A golden ride the world won't forget. But the prompter died, the words wouldn't come. And up that escalator, the joke was begun. No escalator gate, the climb ain't so great. A leader lost his
53 minutes past the hour. Will in Bushkill, Pennsylvania. Hey, Will, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how are you doing? Just a simple strategy suggestion for people in this country who are not fascists. That's, I think, a big group. Anyway, every single Democratic politician, I really hope this happens. I know some are, but every single one needs to say every chance they get relentlessly every day to every microphone they encounter, we know that's what Trump and his goons are doing. They are overthrowing our democracy and implementing a fascist dictatorship. Fine. Knock yourself out. Do it. But when we retake power, every single politician and, frankly, person who was complicit with this will be arrested and imprisoned. Expect it. We guarantee it. And then just walk away. Don't take any questions, but no, just walk away. Mm-hmm. We need to scare them. Yeah. We need to scare these people because it's the only damn thing that they understand.
I agree.
And anyway, that's I know Pritzker's doing it. God bless him. Newsom, God bless him. Bernie and a few others. Not Bernie. He's doing kind of there's oligarchy stuff, but still he does do it once in a while. But we need every single. We're going to lose it, man. We're at the point of no return at this point. I think. And
they know that that's the possibility. That's the potential, and that's why they're doing everything they can to make sure that nobody can, to prevent people from voting in the 26 elections. Why Virginia right now is purging people off their voting rolls, and it's going to get far more intense next year with the midterms. It's going to. I predict next October, November is going to be insane.
Well, he's going to do the Insurrection Act. We know. Mm-hmm. There's zero doubt it's going to. It's coming. Expect it. Anybody who doesn't think it's going to happen, stop being naive. It's coming.
Yeah.
And the only thing is what in the hell we're going to do about it. And what I say we do it. You got to. If you've been saying forever you support freedom and you're brave and you're a brave American. Now it's time to prove it. No more talk. You prove it, and that means, unfortunately, fear of being arrested. Trust me, I'm afraid of being arrested. I have claustrophobia. So, the last thing on earth I want to do is be locked up in a cage or be in a police. No,
I've been there, done that. I was 10 days in a jail, for protesting the Vietnam War. It's no fun.
Yeah.
And when Trump first started talking about the Insurrection Act, the people around him said, "Oh, he's just joking." Just like when he told the joke about having the FCC look into comedians, or when he told the joke about not accepting election results, or when he told the joke about locking up his political opponents, or when he told the joke about having
jokes.
saying the FBI was behind January 6th, or he told the joke about being a dictator on day one, or when he told the joke about executing journalists, or when he told the joke about court-martialing military leadership that didn't go along with him, or when he told the joke about the Constitution being terminated, or when he told the joke about sending U.S. troops into cities. Remember that last year? Or when he told the joke about staying in office forever, or when he told the joke about I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and never be held to account. We need to take his jokes seriously. Will, spot on. And we need to hold, as you said, we need to be holding people accountable. Thank you very much for the call. We're hitting the top of the hour. It's Anything Goes weekend. Deep Red Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma is breaking with Trump. This is fascinating. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at ThomHartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the HartmannReport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at ThomHartmann.com. So check them all out at ThomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com.
We say fight back!
Today is the Seven Mountains Mandate by Matthew Bodie, exposing the dangerous plan to Christianize America and destroy democracy. We'll start with the introduction, the story of the mountains. The plan to Christianize America began 50 years ago with a vision from God, or so the legend goes. Bill Bright, the founder of a college campus evangelism organization, had just landed in Colorado in August of 1975 to participate in an event in Boulder. But something planted deep in his spirit had made Bright desperate to talk to Lauren Cunningham, a founder of another youth-oriented evangelism organization who was on vacation in Colorado. The vision from God that Bright had brought for Cunningham was a typed list of 7 influential areas of culture. If Christians could win these 7 areas for Christ, Bright said, the nation could be set right and return to its biblical origins. It would take a massive spiritual war, but ending the demonic control of these areas would have immense impact for the kingdom of God. The vision from God that Bright had brought for the Constitution, the problem was that God had placed Cunningham on a mountaintop near Durango on the other side of the state with no way to communicate. The man who had picked up Bright at the airport said he could get the two together. Someone got through to a ranger station in Durango, and then from there, someone on horseback found Cunningham's remote location. That man took Cunningham to a borrowed plane, which flew Cunningham to meet the man who had the urgent message from God. What Bright didn't know was that God had given Cunningham the same list, though his was sketched out on a legal pad. The two friends presented their lists to each other simultaneously. Cunningham later wrote, "Amazing coincidences like this happen all the time when Christians listen to the still small voice of the Holy Spirit." Over the years, the story of that 1975 meeting has been told many ways, accepted not merely as gospel, but a divine endorsement of the list that Bright and Cunningham created. Whatever the truth of the meeting, the list has become powerful spiritual lore passed down from one generation to another in the movement born from it. That movement is intent on destroying democracy by taking dominion in these 7 institutions: education, family, religion, government, business, media, and entertainment. Over the decades, many have made their mark on the list by envisioning different labels for it. While Bright and Cunningham spoke of areas of influence, others have called them gates, pillars, channels, and most commonly among the movement's supporters today, mountains. The preferred metaphor evolved over time, but the purpose of the list has remained the same: bring the kingdom of God to America by conquering each of these cultural domains. The story of the 7 Mountains movement told in this book is the story of those who inspired and shaped that 1975 list. It's also about how the list has come to dominate American political life in the 21st century without most Americans even having heard about it. This insidious victory is the work of a new generation of believers who have pushed it with more and more aggression, pushing us closer and closer to violence, threatening our society through their claim to divine urgency. In short, this is the story of how the list became a mandate. The spiritual energy behind this mandate pushed the list into the White House with the 2016 election of Donald Trump. From there, the movement exploded beyond the fringes of charismatic evangelicalism into larger institutions, influencers, and financial backers. To the handful of experts who have followed the movement for years, it was no surprise its supporters turned violent when the 2020 election didn't go the way they wanted, the way they say God wanted. This is where the movement has been headed. Yet even more frightening, since the 2021 insurrection at the Capitol, more Americans seemingly want what the 7 Mountains movement wants also. A June 2023 survey of 2,000 Americans estimated about 30% are open to the ideas associated with the Seven Mountains movement, such as things like the U.S. culture is fundamentally Christian, and Christian values should be solely and explicitly endorsed by the government. Another 2023 survey found a similar percentage of Americans either adhering to or sympathetic to these ideals. A second Trump administration only reinforces that. Of course, many of the Americans in those polls are the demographic most supportive of the mandate, the evangelicals. A 2024 survey showed that strong majorities of evangelicals agree broadly with the goals of the Seven Mountain Movement. About 55% of evangelicals specifically agreed that, quote, God wants Christians to stand atop the seven mountains of society, end quote. The survey also showed that the percentage of Christian Americans who believe in the mandate increased from just under 30% to over 41% in just 1 year. The surveyors note that, quote, what not long ago seemed to be a marginal set of beliefs has become a dominant religious framework among American Christians, end quote. The Seven Mountains movement has been adopted across the religious right, even by leaders who may not share its theology, because their followers are being motivated by the mandate. For example, the 2022 National Day of Prayer Guide from the Southern Baptist Convention asks its congregants to pray for the seven centers of influence. Beyond religion, the Seven Mountains movement has become so accepted in American society that it has supporters from all levels of government. The book, The Seven Mountains Mandate, Exposing the Dangerous Plan to Christianize America and Destroy Democracy, by Matthew Bodie.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. 6 minutes past. Well, it's the beginning of the third hour of the second hour of the program. Excuse me, getting ahead of myself here. So this is interesting. There's a guy down in Florida. His name is Blaise Ingoglia. He's a former state senator. He's currently serving as Florida's chief financial officer, the CFO for the state. In this state, I think we'd call it the state treasurer. And James O'Gara is a 77-year-old resident of Largo, Florida, who likes to send out postcards to politicians. And he sent a postcard to Blaise Ingoglia, the CFO for Florida, that said, "You lack values." That's all it said, "You lack values." And so a couple of armored, uniformed Florida police officers showed up from the criminal division of Florida's Department of Financial Services. In other words, these are cops who, like the security, for this CFO's his department. They went to this guy's house and banged on his door and said they were conducting a threat assessment because he sent a postcard that said, "You lack values." It's amazing. Over on Daily Kos, you will find this story. It says postcard saying "You have no values" gets police intimidation visit in Florida. And it has the address if you want to send a postcard to this, I don't know, I guess wannabe fascist in Florida. It was the CFO. Sending police to your door if you send him a non-threatening postcard. And this is this whole right-wing snowflake thing of, oh my God, we're the poor victims and the horrible left is out there. I mean, now Trump is apparently either on the verge of or has already directed the IRS and these other agencies to do a threat assessment of Indivisible, which is putting together the No Kings March on the 18th. And this is what Speaker Mike Johnson, had to say about this on Fox News yesterday. This is nuts. Listen to this.
with these people. They're playing games with real people's lives. The theory we have right now, they have a Hate America rally that's scheduled for October 18th on the National Mall. It's all the pro-Hamas wing and the Antifa people. They're all coming out. Some of the House Democrats are selling T-shirts for the event, and it's being told to us that they won't be able to reopen the government until after that rally because they can't face their rabid base. I mean, this is serious business hurting real people, and I'm beyond words.
Yeah, I'm beyond words. Yeah. No, you're beyond lies, Mr. Johnson, Speaker Johnson. This is not Antifa. Well, if Antifa stands for anti-fascist, yeah, it is Antifa, which is a good thing. My dad was Antifa. He volunteered to fight in World War II, straight out of high school in 1945. But Mike Johnson doesn't. He has no commitment to the truth. He has no commitment to integrity. And then he says, and the Democrats can't reopen the government until after the rally, the weekend after this, which is complete BS. John Thune, who is the Senate Majority Leader, the Republican who runs the Senate, they have, 53, 54 senators. John Thune could reopen the United States Senate tomorrow morning. He could do it this afternoon. All he has to do is pass a resolution, which only takes 50 votes. Keep in mind, he's got 53 votes. All he has to do is pass a resolution that says, we are suspending the filibuster for this continuing resolution. That's all he has to do. They do it constantly. He's done this repeatedly. Suspended the Democratic filibusters to put into place Trump judges and Trump administration officials. I mean, this is just pathetic. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is designating, or his interest in designating Antifa could give the government with new tools to prosecute, according to Jordan Green over on Raw Story. Foreign terrorist organization designation effectively functions as a ban. And so they want to ban Antifa. Well, good luck with that. There is no Antifa. I mean, but by trying to ban something that doesn't exist, what they're saying is basically they can call anybody Antifa. Just like Joe McCarthy was able to call pretty much anybody he wanted a communist and destroy lives doing it. And that's the goal again. I mean, this is, here's Trump turns to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and says, can we designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization? And Trump says, Marco, we'll take care of it. Then he turns to Stephen Miller. He says, Steve, you okay with that? And Miller says, yes, it's true. There are extensive foreign ties, and I think it would be a very valid step to take. Extensive foreign ties with Antifa? Really? And then Kristi Noem gets on her high horse. This is during Trump's little, cabinet meeting where everybody has to kiss his ass and then say absurd things. She says, this network of Antifa is just as sophisticated as MS-13, as TDA, as ISIS, as Hezbollah, as Hamas, as all of them. Really? She says, they are just as dangerous. They have an agenda to destroy us, just like the other terrorists we've dealt with for many, many years. So if you're opposed to fascism and are therefore Antifa, anti-fascist, then is this administration arguing that they have the legal right to arrest you, put you in Guantanamo, waterboard you, take you from your family, send you off to Egypt to be tortured in a dark site? Pam Bondi, the head, the Attorney General, the head of all of our police agencies, she says, and I quote, just like we did with cartels, we're going to take this same approach, President Trump, with Antifa, destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. So Olivia Troy, who used to work for Mike Pence, she was the counterterrorism advisor to Mike Pence. She says, I guess the question is, are we just going to start bombing random buildings where they think Antifa is residing? And then Miles Taylor, who's been on this program, in fact, he was, yesterday, the day before, He says, we're talking about loosening the rules of engagement to go after the domestic opposition. This is not hyperbole. Indivisible, as Donald Trump is aiming the IRS at these groups, Indivisible says, no, we're going to stand up. We're not going to take this. Stephen Miller says Indivisible is, quote, playing a central role. This is, actually, let me just read this straight. This is by John Quealy over at Common Dreams. In-depth reporting by Reuters named Trump's far-right xenophobic White House advisor Stephen Miller is playing a central role in the internal effort to wield the power of federal agencies at a variety of organizations that the administration claims, contrary to all evidence, all available evidence, are funding or orchestrating violent protests and political attacks. Reuters reporting is based on discussions with 3 White House officials, 4 Department of Homeland Security officials, and 1 Justice Department official. And this is what they said, quote, Trump wants to scare people away from exercising their constitutional rights. And that means showing up in huge numbers on October 18th. They're trying to scare people away from showing up for No King's Day right now. According to Reuters, quote, Miller is deeply involved in reviewing government agencies' investigations into the financial networks behind what the administration labels domestic terror networks, which include nonprofits and even educational institutions. The White House highlighted 7 political protests in 23 and 25 that included acts of violence. It named 9 liberal groups, donors, or fundraising organizations. They include George Soros' Open Society Foundation, Act Blue, which is the fundraising arm of the Democratic Party, and Indivisible, which is putting on the October 18th No King's Day thing. They also named the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, which is a Los Angeles-based group. They're also going after Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now, 2 Jewish-led organizations who have opposed Netanyahu's genocide in Gaza. Ezra Levin, who is the co-founder of Indivisible, says, it appears Trump's regime is gearing up to smear us with ludicrous accusations that we're somehow tied to violence or protests, a claim as false as it is predictable. Let's call this what it is, a baseless attempt to chill free speech and scare people away from exercising their constitutional right to protest against an authoritarian regime. We will not back down, Levin said. Trump and Miller can lie, smear, and threaten all they want. They will lose. Ezra, from your lips to God's ears. Meanwhile, the governor of Oklahoma is having second thoughts about some of the stuff that Trump is up to. He's also the president or chairman of the National Governors Association. Kevin Stitt is his name, Republican governor. I'll tell you about that on the other side of the break. And we'll be picking up your calls. It's Anything Goes Weekend. Stay with us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Bernice in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, Bernice, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Tom. Well, I don't think he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, but I think maybe Democrats can give him some kind of prize because he has given us an amazing opportunity. You know, he clearly...
He being Trump?
Threatened Trump. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hate to say his name. He clearly repeated that he vows that he's going to cut Democratic programs. So I say it's time to exhume Joe Republican and tie Trump to that and just, okay, he's going to cut these programs. He's going to cut Social Security. He's going to cut Medicare. He's going to cut all these programs that were put in place by Democrats.
They literally were, too. There's not a single one of those social programs that was put into place by Republicans. Not one in 100 years.
The little contest you have. That's the contest you have going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Asking people to call in.
Yep.
So I think Joe Republican, people, look it up. It's a wonderful thing Tom has highlighted for years.
Yeah, Nathan Gray wrote that 15 years ago.
Yeah. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay. Well, maybe I should reprise that
Try
myself.
indeed.
I've written my own versions of it repeatedly over the years, but
Yeah, you have.
it's
it needs a little updating, maybe.
Yeah.
But not
There you
much. Yeah.
All righty.
Okay.
Bernice, thanks for the call.
Have a good one.
Yeah, good talking
You're
to
welcome.
you.
Bye.
Let's see here. Whoops. Martin in Greensboro, North Carolina. Hey, Martin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I was curious to ask you about your opinion on ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of object to the D's in that, the deficit and the disorder.
So do I.
Because I think it's just a different way the mind works.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it gets overdiagnosed and over-medicated.
Mm-hmm.
I have been, I have a daughter that was diagnosed with it, and she's on medication. She's always trying to get me to get tested for it. But I just think that, some of the abilities that it gives you, like hyperfocus, are important in their own right. And I have heard that you have some opinions on this, and I'm just curious about
I have written 7 books on the topic. And probably the number 1 book is called ADHD, Hunter in a Farmer's World. And my hypothesis, which has now largely been proven by science, is that in a hunting-gathering society, the 3 principal characteristics of ADHD, impulsivity, distractibility, and a need for high levels of stimulation, would all be resources. They would be all be things that would guarantee your success as a hunter out in the jungle or the savanna or the fields or the forest. On the other hand, as we moved into industrial and agricultural societies, where instead of running around looking for lunch, you grow it, and you need to sit patiently and wait for the crops to grow, or go out in the field for hours and hours and hours and pick bugs off plants, or put bolts on screws in a factory. Those assets become a liability, and so the key for a person, I call them hunters, for a person with ADHD, is to find the life situation, the partner, and the job that match your neurochemistry rather than that conflict with it. And the problem is our schools, by and large, are set up for farmers, not for hunters. And
exactly.
So I also have a website about this where, that's completely free. It's called hunterinAfarmersworld.com. And at HartmannReport.com, every Saturday on my Saturday report, I have a link to those sites. But it's easy to find, hunterinAfarmersworld.com. I got to run, Martin. Thanks. I think you're right. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out.
They say we're hiding in basements, plotting the nation's fall. But the scariest thing we're scheming is healthcare that covers us all. Oh, the last radical lefty, he's dangerous, can't you see? He's armed with a clipboard and compost and a plan to save Social Security. They call us violent anarchists, but our weapons don't really harm. A tote bag of fair trade latte and kale from the co-op farm. So if democracy trembles and the right says we're all to blame, remember the terror they're warning about. Can't even spell your name. Yes, the last radical lefty, a menace you must confess. He'll terrify Wall Street billionaires with his vote for higher tax rates, I guess. Beware, he's coming for your health insurance paperwork.
24 minutes past the hour. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt is the chair of the National Governors Association. And he's a little worked up about Donald Trump sending federal troops into Chicago, especially Texas federalized troops, Texas National Guard troops. He said, and I quote, "We believe in the federalist system. That's states' rights. Oklahomans would lose their mind if Pritzker and Illinois sent troops down to Oklahoma during the Biden administration." See, this is what Kevin Stitt understands, that the guys in the White House believe they'll never have to confront. Stephen Miller, Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, all of these guys believe that they are, or at least are behaving like they believe that they will be in power forever. That there will never again be a Democratic president. There will never again be a Democratic House or Senate. That it's going to be one-party rule going forward, that we are going to become like Russia or China or Hungary or Turkey or increasingly India or Singapore. You pick your strongman authoritarian government. And maybe they're right. I mean, they're doing everything they can to bring that into fruition. But Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, clearly thinks that America is still capable of electing a Democrat. He says, and I quote, "I was surprised the Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott sent troops from Texas to Illinois. Abbott and I sued the Biden administration when the shoe was on the other foot. And the Biden administration was trying to force us to vaccinate all our soldiers and force masks across the country. We sued them. As a Federalist believer," Governor Stitt says, "one governor against another governor, I don't think that's the right way to approach this." Now, the National Governors Association itself, of which he's the president, has not made an official comment. They're technically an educational organization. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, hey, go along with the Democrats and give us back our health care and we'll reopen the government. Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, saying this stuff is nuts. The cracks are starting.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And if they continue, it's going to get real interesting. Up next, your calls. We'll start with George in Cripple Creek on the other side of the break. Stay tuned. Today is the Seven Mountains Mandate by Matthew Bodie, exposing the dangerous plan to Christianize America and destroy democracy. We'll start with the introduction, the story of the mountains. The plan to Christianize America began 50 years ago with a vision from God, or so the legend goes. Bill Bright, the founder of a college campus evangelism organization, had just landed in Colorado in August of 1975 to participate in an event in Boulder. But something planted deep in his spirit had made Bright desperate to talk to Lauren Cunningham, a founder of another youth-oriented evangelism organization who was on vacation in Colorado. The vision from God that Bright had brought for Cunningham was a typed list of 7 influential areas of culture. If Christians could win these 7 areas for Christ, Bright said, the nation could be set right and return to its biblical origins. It would take a massive spiritual war, but ending the demonic control of these areas would have immense impact for the kingdom of God. The vision from God that Bright had brought for the Constitution, the problem was that God had placed Cunningham on a mountaintop near Durango on the other side of the state with no way to communicate. The man who had picked up Bright at the airport said he could get the two together. Someone got through to a ranger station in Durango, and then from there, someone on horseback found Cunningham's remote location. That man took Cunningham to a borrowed plane, which flew Cunningham to meet the man who had the urgent message from God. What Bright didn't know was that God had given Cunningham the same list, though his was sketched out on a legal pad. The two friends presented their lists to each other simultaneously. Cunningham later wrote, "Amazing coincidences like this happen all the time when Christians listen to the still small voice of the Holy Spirit." Over the years, the story of that 1975 meeting has been told many ways, accepted not merely as gospel, but a divine endorsement of the list that Bright and Cunningham created. Whatever the truth of the meeting, the list has become powerful spiritual lore passed down from one generation to another in the movement born from it. That movement is intent on destroying democracy by taking dominion in these 7 institutions: education, family, religion, government, business, media, and entertainment. Over the decades, many have made their mark on the list by envisioning different labels for it. While Bright and Cunningham spoke of areas of influence, others have called them gates, pillars, channels, and most commonly among the movement's supporters today, mountains. The preferred metaphor evolved over time, but the purpose of the list has remained the same: bring the kingdom of God to America by conquering each of these cultural domains. The story of the 7 Mountains movement told in this book is the story of those who inspired and shaped that 1975 list. It's also about how the list has come to dominate American political life in the 21st century without most Americans even having heard about it. This insidious victory is the work of a new generation of believers who have pushed it with more and more aggression, pushing us closer and closer to violence, threatening our society through their claim to divine urgency. In short, this is the story of how the list became a mandate. The spiritual energy behind this mandate pushed the list into the White House with the 2016 election of Donald Trump. From there, the movement exploded beyond the fringes of charismatic evangelicalism into larger institutions, influencers, and financial backers. To the handful of experts who have followed the movement for years, it was no surprise its supporters turned violent when the 2020 election didn't go the way they wanted, the way they say God wanted. This is where the movement has been headed. Yet even more frightening, since the 2021 insurrection at the Capitol, more Americans seemingly want what the 7 Mountains movement wants also. A June 2023 survey of 2,000 Americans estimated about 30% are open to the ideas associated with the 7 Mountains movement, such as things like U.S. culture is fundamentally Christian, and Christian values should be solely and explicitly endorsed by the government. Another 2023 survey found a similar percentage of Americans either adhering to or sympathetic to these ideals. A second Trump administration only reinforces that. Of course, many of the Americans in those polls are the demographic most supportive of the mandate, the evangelicals. A 2024 survey showed that strong majorities of evangelicals agree broadly with the goals of the 7 Mountain movement. About 55% of evangelicals specifically agreed that, quote, God wants Christians to stand atop the 7 mountains of society, end quote. The survey also showed that the percentage of Christian Americans who believe in the mandate increased from just under 30% to over 41% in just 1 year. The surveyors note that, quote, what not long ago seemed to be a marginal set of beliefs has become a dominant religious framework among American Christians, end quote. The 7 Mountains movement has been adopted across the religious right, even by leaders who may not share its theology, because their followers are being motivated by the mandate. For example, the 2022 National Day of Prayer Guide from the Southern Baptist Convention asks its congregants to pray for the 7 centers of influence. Beyond religion, the Seven Mountains movement has become so accepted in American society that it has supporters from all levels of government. The book, The Seven Mountains Mandate, Exposing the Dangerous Plan to Christianize America and Destroy Democracy, by Matthew Bodie. Share the Thom Hartmann program with your friends. Our podcast, The Hartmann Report, is absolutely free and available wherever fine podcasts are available. And the entire 3-hour podcast is available over at thomhartmann.com.
Marching boots on city streets, paper laws beneath his feet. Every voice that dares to sing falls silent in the shadow of a crown. It's good to be king if the people kneel, if the truth is buried, if the courts won't feel. It's good to be king, but the throne's built on sand, and the people must rise if this dream's to stand.
35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Picking up your calls here on Anything Goes Weekend. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia. Hey, George, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how you doing? Well, TASS the other day just quoted the Ukrainian Defense Ministry is saying Ukraine is having increasing difficulty using U.S.-supplied Patriot missiles to intercept the modernized Iskander-M tactical missiles and the Kinjal air-launched hypersonic cruise missiles. In August, the intercept rate was 37%, but in September it dropped to 6% since these modernized missiles now change course on target approach, enter steep dives, or perform other maneuvers that confuse the Patriots. Now that's bad news.
Is that all true, George?
I think so, yeah, since they're quoting the U.S. government, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's you know what's amazing to me is that the Russians are intentionally bombing civilians, killing civilians, civilian properties, apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, things like that. And the Ukrainians are only hitting infrastructure.
Yeah, like defense industries and, energy producing.
Correct. Yeah. And that distinction is not being made in the press.
No, they're just, saying, oh, yeah, the Russians are hitting, industrial targets in defense, but they aren't.
Yeah.
And another thing, good news, President Zelensky announced that Ukraine has begun series production of that Flamingo domestically produced cruise missile that has a range of 1,800 miles and carries a 1,000-kilogram plus warhead. So now you won't have to, rely on President Trump giving him Tomahawk missiles.
Right, except that these are a lot slower and they can't engage in evasive maneuvers like Tomahawks can.
Right. But, the thing I read was we only produce about 60 or 70 of those a year. So, I don't know how many we have in the stockpile, but that's not near enough to supply our needs if we got involved in something with China over Taiwan and have to supply them to Ukraine.
We only produce 60 or 70 Tomahawks a year?
That's what, yeah.
Is that because that's all we're using and we've got a good stockpile, or is that because that's all we're capable of producing?
How much we have, in the stockpiles.
Yeah.
And then when those B-2 attacked Iran in June, they used some of those Tomahawks launched from attack subs. But I'm not sure how many we have, in stockpiles.
Yeah. Interesting question. Do you, George, you're a former intelligence guy and you speak Russian and read it, fluently, and you monitor the Russian press. Do you have any sense that Putin is wobbling, that he might be facing some sort of internal revolt?
Yeah, I think so, since they're, rationing gas now to Russian motorists and having to cut back on exporting oil. That's the main thing to supplying Putin's war with Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's definitely beginning to hurt him. So if he does, if he doesn't have success soon, I think he might be falling out of a high-rise window.
And yet they blacked out Kyiv yesterday. If my my recollection is correct of what I read, I mean that's a big deal. Taking down the power to the entire capital city.
I read somewhere they've already blacked out about 50% of Ukraine's energy sources with a hard winter coming on.
Yeah. This is going to be a brutal winter for Ukraine. I am very concerned.
I am too. So I hope he ramps up those flamingos because they'll be more welcome.
Yeah, there you go. George, thank you. It's always nice hearing from you. I appreciate the information.
And keep up the good work, and I enjoy listening to you on Sirius.
Thank you, George. Back at you. Good talking to you. Ed in, hang on just a second here. Push the right button. Ed in Chicago. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hey, Tom. Before I get to my point, really quickly, remember the meme of just sit down to tell people if anybody instigates violence at a rally, just sit down so you're not involved in the violence, and it points out who is instigating the violence. Mm-hmm. I think that meme, I don't think we can overemphasize that meme for the upcoming No Kings rally. I think everybody should be aware of that. Just sit down.
Well, and also in Chicago, Los Angeles, soon to be Memphis and Portland, if you're going to go to a protest, to protest the presence of ICE, absolutely. If when the crap hits the fan, either leave or sit down. Sometimes sitting down, you just, if they're throwing tear gas at you, it's just not an option.
Oh, no, I understand that, but I'm talking about if somebody starts a fight or something like that, just sit down. Don't try and get involved. Just unless they have the opportunity to protect somebody, of course. Yeah. But for the most part, just sit down and let the sort of points out. But the point I wanted to make was I wanted to second a point that you made yesterday that I thought was absolutely brilliant. And the reason I thought it was absolutely brilliant is because I was thinking the same thing since the last Kennedy hearings. And that's for the Democratic representatives to not ask any questions to any of the people that Trump is sending, whoever is in charge of that hearing or whoever is being questioned at that hearing. Right. Just spend your time, your 5 minutes, have a list, have all your ducks in a row, all your facts in a row, and just go down a list of everything that they are doing that is either illegal or immoral, but do not give them the opportunity, because all they're going to do is, make Fox News clips. Yeah. So don't give them that opportunity. Just don't do it, because they've been doing this over and over and over, and by now it's obvious that's all they're doing. So anyway, I just wanted to agree with you that I've been, like I said, I've been thinking that since the last Kennedy hearing.
I agree. And now we've got we've got photographs of the notes that Pam Bondi had about the opposition research and all these Democratic politicians. But did you notice from time to I saw twice on two different occasions when she was being grilled, she pointed to her ear. She looked off to the side and she pointed to her ear and tilted her head a little bit, like I'm not hearing you in my in this thing in my ear. And I'm wondering if she's wearing one of those Bluetooth hearing aid contraptions, that are invisible in your ear, where they can, like George W. Bush apparently used in the 2004 debate against Al Gore, John Kerry.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised by that, but that's just one more. In fact, I've been making my rounds of calling reps saying just what you said yesterday, because I just think by now it's obvious that it's a waste of time, and it's just giving them an opportunity for clips. So don't give them that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah. Well said, Ed. From one great mind to another. Thank you very much. Good talking to you. Thank you. Jerry in Tampa, Florida. Hey, Jerry, what's on your mind today?
Well, good afternoon, Tom. And as I told your producer, I've been following everything that Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi and Holman have been saying about the immigrants being wounded up, as they like to call them, the criminals, and being either put in detentions or being spirited out of the country and all that. Well, the whole idea behind the budget cutting Medicare and Medicaid was so that these criminals, these illegals, wouldn't get them. Well, if we've got them out of the country, then there's no need to cut the benefits, is there? I mean, somebody should.
They
try
never got
to,
those benefits to begin with, Jerry. If you're not a legal resident of the United States, you do not qualify for Medicare, Medicaid, or any. I mean, the only benefit that you qualify for is the one that Ronald Reagan signed into law in 1986 in response to Ted Kennedy demanding a national health care program. And that's the requirement that if somebody shows up at an emergency room and they're in trouble, they have to be treated, regardless of who they are, regardless of their ability to pay. That's the only benefit, and that's the benefit that the Republicans are squealing about, by the way. That's the one that they're saying.
Right. Certainly, and I understand that.
And we all want that.
That's the excuse that they've been giving.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, you can take that excuse away from them now and just say, well, there's none of these criminals
They're not in the country anymore.
around to get them.
Yeah, the problem is that, we started out with an estimated 10 to 15 million people who are in the country, without documentation.
Yep.
And
there's just one other thing. There's no question in my mind that Pam Bondi cannot, after that Truth Social post came out, that she can't claim that she's independent of the president. She's doing what he wants.
Yeah, and this is yeah, thank you, Jerry. And it's wrong. I believe it's against the law. I think it's called selective or vindictive prosecution.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be in a couple of seconds. I'll continue with your calls on the other side of this break. Stay with us. And welcome back. Lowell in Salem. Hey, Lowell, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I wanted to raise the issue of the retirement crisis in America.
Okay.
And, kind of describe it first. So 401ks were introduced, 60 years ago as a tax plan to have high-income earners save money tax-free.
Right.
Now, they give us
to supplement the
401k,
IRAs, which were already there, the individual retirement accounts.
Right, but they give us a 401k. But then how many people, and I challenge you to take a survey of everybody, how many people can contribute the $23,500 a year that it would take to fully fund a 401k? And, and if you factor also into the fact that 78% of the workforce lives paycheck to paycheck. So, you have a majority of Americans who can't afford to contribute anything. And like Democrats' plan in Oregon was just to give access to a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many of those people who are working these low-wage jobs are going to be able to save any money when a majority of workers can't even afford their basic incomes or basic, costs of living?
Right. So what's I get your logic, Lowell, but I don't understand the point of it.
Well, my point is, Democrats' only solution is, give access to a 401k. Which is...
No, Democrats' solution is to, at least Bernie's solution, is to give everyone on Social Security, a $2,500 a year raise immediately, and then index, instead of using the cost of living index that Social Security uses right now, which is one that applies basically to everyone, use one that applies to older people, that's more heavily weighted for things like pharmaceuticals and food and rent rather than things like, iPhones and electronics.
But again, remember how FDR described Social Security. It was part of a three-legged stool. So the three-legged stool was your pension from work, your personal savings, and Social Security.
Right.
So the issue is we've taken away one of those legs of the stool, and now we're expecting entirely people to save money on their own.
Right. Well, even when FDR rolled out Social Security, only about a third of Americans, not even a third of Americans, probably a tenth of Americans had access to a pension.
But my solution is to force a subsidy of 401ks based on your income level. So the less you make, the more of a subsidy you get into your 401k.
Well, now you're talking like Thomas Paine. Did you ever read Agrarian Justice?
Yes.
Thomas Paine proposed this, that the federal government should put money into a fund like this at birth, And then,
Yes.
Go ahead.
And Robert Reich, proposed a weird thing where he said, I'll give everyone $2,000 at birth, and they'll have money enough for college by the time into a savings account, and they'll have enough for college by the time they turn 18,
right.
Which is a ridiculous thing because you would need 50% interest in order to make that work.
Well, given the cost of college now, that wasn't true with the cost of college 40 years ago. But yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea, Lowell. I think we've got to figure out some way to deal with this because we've got more than half of seniors right now living in serious poverty, dangerous poverty. Lowell, thank you. Thank you very much. It's just about 10 minutes before the hour. We'll be right back. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? At the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. That's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
They say tone it down while the fire's still burning. One side's preaching hate, the other's still learning. False balance feeds the flames, we all know the plan. Democracy's breaking on the both sides scam.
Welcome back. 51 minutes past the hour. Picking up your calls here. Robin in San Diego. Hey, Robin, what's up?
Well, I'm responding to the call from Carlos, and all that bravado about how children are being made to feel bad in California schools. Mm-hmm. So I have to share what's happening right now and has been happening since the 8th of September when Trump on TV introduced his Museum of the Bible. I know it was on C-SPAN and others covered it, and it had the title of Office of Public Affairs in the U.S. Department of Justice. So they spoke about, they had different speakers. They sang Amazing Grace, lifted their arms up to the, God, I guess, when they were singing and stuff. And they told the story of a kid who happens to go to, or used to go to where my grandson goes to school. They talked about how they were indoctrinating kids by using a certain book. It's a book that was left out, and this kid, being a 5th grader, they had free time and buddy time, and he got the book, and basically I read it and then told his dad about it, and then they complained.
What's the point you're making here, Robin?
The point I'm making here is my grandson's school has been in semi-lockdown since this happened. The threats that came at the
because
school,
of a book?
Because of the publicity. Trump stood there with this kid and said, "This is terrible." And Pam Bondi stood up and said, "These people are going to be prosecuted to the nth of the law, to the basically." And if you go to C-SPAN, look on the 8th of September, the Bible Museum introduction, and just watch some of that. The kid was there when on the 8th, when my daughter-in-law went to pick up.
Yeah. No, I get it. So what are you doing about it, or is anybody doing anything about it?
Well, basically, we still have a presence because of all the threats. And I don't. What do you do about it? If you have an idea that there's been sheriffs, police, I don't know what else. They had to get secret. I know this because I also get the letters, and because I'm a backup person for my grandson. But when all of these, like this First Liberty Institute, which makes tons of money with stuff like this, they keep republishing and publishing it. There's a TikTok, 700 Club has run it multiple times. Wow. There's been the right wing,
and it's all directing threats and whatnot against your child's school, your grandchild's school.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Robin, I got to move along, but that's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing it. Rich in Central Woolley, Washington. Hey, Rich, what's on your mind today?
I'm so sick of hearing Antifa.
Yeah.
It's the correct pronunciation is Antifa. It's two words. Whether you spell it or you say it, you got to put that hyphen in there because otherwise it sounds like a meaningless cartoon word. And words are your stock and trade. So you know, Tom, that if they remove the meaning from a word, they can put their own meaning back into it.
Well, I can still say
exactly
Antifa and mean anti-fascist.
Right, but across the board, people aren't getting it. You know, people...
Well...
Yeah, somebody like my dad, you know, are you Antifa? And he's like, no, you know, well, were you against the Nazis during World War II? Well, yeah. People aren't making the association that Antifa means anti-fat. We've got to take the word back. It's just like with Democrat Party versus Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. They stole this word and they've tried to take the teeth out of it, the meaning out of it.
No, I get it. I totally get it. And the best we can do is just continue pointing out, and you're not going to change people from saying Antifa because it's like all of the news media uses that phrase. It is now common parlance. That's not going to change. So what we have to do is say Antifa stands for anti-fascist. Now, what's wrong with that?
Oh, you can help change it, Tom. Come on.
I do not have that much influence. I really don't. But I get your point, Rich. I get your point. So my solution is just to add that, that sentence. Oh, it stands for anti-fascist. What's your specific objection to anti-fascism? Rich, thanks for the call. Ed in Chicago, or EJ, in Chicago. Hey, EJ, you got a quick one here? It looks to me like I've got about a little more than a half a minute.
Yeah, I'll be really fast. I just want to say two things. First of all, in Broadview, where that ICE facility is, the way they're making it seem is that the town is out of control and it's chaotic. We went shopping the other day at Target in Broadview, and it couldn't be anything farther from that.
Yeah.
It's a
just
peaceful
like here
town,
in Poland.
well-kept homes, and just a nice place to live. It's got its share of problems, but nothing as bad as what they're saying. And then the second one is I'm a government worker, not getting a paycheck right now. Please make sure you keep your thoughts and prayers for us because it's going to start hitting home in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Today would have been payday, right?
The next couple of days, yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a partial check, and then next pay period, if it's still going on, we don't get a check.
Yeah. Well, good luck, EJ. It's tough to hear. But, the Republicans want to have their little government shutdown. EJ, thanks for the call. We'll be back on the other side of the break with the third hour of the program. Stay with us.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is A History of the World in 6 Plagues, How Contagion, Class, and Captivity Shaped Us from Cholera to COVID-19. Book was published in March of this year. This is from the prologue. I rarely enjoy, and it's by Edna Bonhomme, B-O-N-H-O-M-M-E. I believe that's how it's pronounced. She writes, I rarely enjoy an entire night of rest without interruption. I fixate on the whorls of brass on a light fixture or a stray fly. Like many insomniacs, my angst has an origin story. It began when I was a child and is bound in my memories like a cankerous sore. In the summer of 1988, after nearly a week of high temperatures and perennial diarrhea, my parents, both in their early 20s, took me in desperation to Jackson Memorial Hospital, the same public infirmary in Miami where my mother would later work as a janitor. After a series of tests, I was diagnosed with typhoid fever. I spent a month there at 4 years old, lonely and scared, curled up small in a hospital bed that felt huge. The stale air wafted through my nose while the EKG machine rattled through the night. I heard the buzzing of the fluorescent lights as the stiffness of the bed pressed up against my body. Unable to swallow without feeling nauseous, I could barely eat. According to my aunts and parents, I nearly died. Hyperbole is a familiar register for my elders, their dramatic tales making for entertaining family gatherings. But for once, their alarm at my sluggishness and flushed skin made sense. I was seriously ill. Unmoored from myself with a deep headache, my throat burned and my cough echoed throughout the room. When my relatives visited me, I skulked along the ward corridors, dragging my tiny legs slowly from the bedroom into the playroom. But the worst part was that when the nurses arrived with my favorite fruit, mango, I barely touched the plate. Instead, I glared at them with repulsion and at every other nutrient with irritation as I crumbled into a state of fatigue. What had started as a fever turned into a curse that my miniature body, mind, and spirit could no longer bear. My hospitalization stretched on primarily to get me to a place of health, but also to ensure that I could not infect others. I lost weight. As each day turned into night, I heard the sounds of the nurses as they moved around, shaken. My decline, my high temperature, and eventually my progress were left to the staff. Most of the time, they confined me to the bed in the room, unable to move as I pleased or join the games of my friends who I could see in the playground in my mind's eye. In my confinement, I felt like I was outside of myself. This month of hospitalization has had a life of its own in the years afterward. In the early hours of the morning, as I am laying in bed, the early memories of captivity returns. I am reminded of the waves of tears that flowed down my round. My parents would leave, and the sense of being trapped. When one is bedridden with a life-threatening disease or a chronic illness, one might find oneself obsessed with death. I was too young to understand the cause or nature of my condition, but had a sense that death was something foreboding, a darkness hanging over me. Restless, I craved climbing the coconut tree in our backyard and searching for ladybugs and my cousins. My fear was driven by the conviction that I would not wake up the next time I closed my eyes. More than my parents' embraces and promises of safety muttered in Creole or the icy ball of the nurse's thermometer, the hospital bed was the most consistent thing I felt. The details of this period are less significant than the impact it created, how 3 decades later I feel irrevocably out of place when entering a hospital. I absorbed the hushed voices, the pastel-colored walls, and the Spartan hospital gowns. I could hear the doctors' voices, but could not understand what they were saying. The syllables rattled through the air, meaningless sounds. Barely able to articulate my thoughts in either Creole or English, I was a callow girl lost in a room of tubes and bright lights, obsessed with my plans to escape. I couldn't see past my hospital bedroom, my mom, in the sense that my restraint was my punishment for pushing a friend off the slide, as I recall doing in my local playground shortly before I was taken ill. All I could do was count the number of times my parents came per day, or the moments the nurses came to feed me. I had no control over anything, what I ate, where I went, when I moved. Even when I imagined playing with my friends at the beach or pictured the sugarcane stalks in our backyard, my thoughts were dimmed by the atmosphere. When others entered the room, even my family, I felt they were surveying me, taking the measure of the bed, the equipment, and my body. Now I find that a bed, even when lying next to a friend or lover, is also a place of unease. Will they disappear in the middle of the night once I'm asleep? Or will their presence comfort me? For months after my infection with typhoid fever, I felt the profound injustice of being forced indoors and restrained, unable to feel the humid, heavy Miami wind blowing on my face, or watch the luxury sailboats with sunburned passengers splash across the calm water of Biscayne Bay. I learned how to sit still with my thoughts. Even today, hospitals agitate me, not because of their stiff chairs or drab walls or even their bland art, but because of my dread. Medical institutions remind me of my most profound envy for people who can sleep a whole night without interruption or harm. In the late 19th century, typhoid fever was one of the most prevalent diseases in America. When Mary Mallon, popularly known as Typhoid Mary, was identified as the asymptomatic carrier of the disease, physicians believed she had infected families in New York City for whom she cooked. The book is A History of the World in 6 Plagues.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome to the third hour of our program. A couple of geeky science things here. The first is Planetary Health Diet could save 40,000 people from death every single day. That's pretty amazing. This is, first of all, a third of greenhouse gases. This is an article by Damian Carrington, by the way, out of the Guardian. A third of greenhouse gas emissions come from the global food system, and taming the climate crisis is impossible without changing how we eat. If the more meat you eat, the more you are destroying the environment, is the bottom line. And so they put forward this diet that if the whole world adopted it, this is 70 leading experts from 35 countries on 6 continents. And it's called the PhD diet, the public health diet, planetary health diet. And it's real straightforward. 5 portions a day of fruit and veggies, 3 to 4 portions a day of whole grains, 1 portion a day of nuts, 1 portion a day of legumes, beans, peas, lentils, 1 serving of milk, yogurt, or cheese, 3 to 4 eggs a week, 2 portions of fish a week, and 1 portion of meat a week. And even that would be optional. So I think that's pretty cool. I mean, this whole the eat more meat thing. I mean, outside of the weirdos, the Bob Kennedys of the world who are very into this, eating meat ages you more rapidly, and puts a lot of stress on the body, particularly the kidneys, all that protein, and it's unnecessary. In fact, vegetable protein is really, in many regards, a superior protein. So consider changing your diet to save the world. Also, I have a piece over at wisdomschool.com. It's titled When the Body Forgets to Ask for Water. And this is based on a story. This is last weekend, last Saturday, in fact, a week from tomorrow. Louise and I went down to Forest Park. Forest Park is the largest urban park in the world, and it's right here in Portland. And it's part of the Tualatin Mountain Range, and so it's a park where you don't just walk trails, you climb trails. I mean, we went up. According to my Apple Watch, we went up about 35 flights of stairs, 35 stories. And, we do a 2-mile walk every Saturday and every Sunday morning in Forest Park. And last Saturday, I got started, and my Apple Watch keeps track of my heartbeat rate. And my heartbeat rate started spiking at 145. Now, my resting heartbeat rate is 57. Normally, on a really getting out of breath exercise, which this was. We were on a particularly steep trail. Normally my heartbeat rate gets up to around 130, 135. And so I was like, what's going on here? And then it suddenly hit me. This was at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the last, I'd had a half a cup of coffee in the morning. That, when I wake up, I have a half a cup of coffee. That's my morning thing. And the last time I had drank any liquid at all was before I went to bed. So it had been like 14, 15 hours since I'd had any liquids. I was dehydrated, but I didn't notice it. So anyhow, I got a bottle of water out and drank about 8 ounces of water, and within 10 minutes, my heartbeat rate was back down to 130, even though I was still exercising. And the problem was that my blood had gotten too thick, too viscous. And that sets you up for a stroke or a heart attack. So I came home and I plugged this question into one of the large language models, one of the GPT models, and just asked, at what age do you stop noticing when you're thirsty? I mean, am I unique in this? Because I just don't get thirsty anymore. And it said in your 60s. When you end your 50s, you will stop there's an actual whole chemistry thing. It laid it out, the particular enzyme and reaction with the nervous system and all this stuff, where the body just doesn't, your signal that you're thirsty just isn't anywhere near as efficient as it used to be. And so people end up with all kinds of problems, the main ones being strokes and heart attacks, but the secondary category being kidney damage, because they allow themselves to get dehydrated and don't even realize it because they're just not drinking enough liquids. So for the last week, I've been drinking, green drinks and fresh squeezed juices and smoothies throughout my show and throughout the day. I'm starting to pay attention to this because holy cow. So anyway, I wrote an article about it, complete with the science and all the links, to the science and all that kind of stuff. UCA Health has noted that up to 40% of adults over 60 experience chronic dehydration. There's an article in the journal Nutrients and the American Journal of Epidemiology, how age-related changes to fluid balance, thirst perception, and kidney function combine to create what they call low-intake dehydration. This isn't the kind of dehydration that leads to hospitalizations. This is the kind of dehydration that causes strokes and heart attacks and kidney damage. There's a big study out of the National Institutes of Health showing that failing to stay well hydrated radically increases the long-term risk of heart failure. Not heart attack, but heart failure. Because, when your blood thickens, clots can form more easily. They can travel to your brain. That's what a stroke is. There was another article in Progress in Cardiovascular Diseases about this. So anyhow, it's all over at wisdomschool.com. It's the top story on the page if you want to see it. And I recommend you pay attention to it. And if you know anybody who's over 60, share it with them. It's free. It's over at wisdomschool.com. And you can pass it along. So those are my stories for the day. What's on your mind? Elise in Portland. Hey, Elise, what's up? Elise? Watching us on Free Speech TV in Portland? Elise, I'm going to put you on hold. You're listening to your TV instead of your phone. There's a time delay there so we can bleep obscenities and stuff. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hey, Tom. You keep hearing about Chief, and I think I've called you a number of times about it was a real organization in Germany.
Yeah, it was called the White Rose Society you're talking about.
No. I'm talking about there was a White Rose Society, and there was Antifa.
Oh, really?
Anti-fascist.
There was an organization in Germany called Antifa? I mean,
right. They were.
That would be English, not German.
What's that?
That would be English, not German. The word anti in English is not the same word as it is in German.
But they did it. I don't know how they pronounced it, but at the end they had action, meaning action. That's where the A comes from. But they were real, and they did, all kinds of, stuff where they stopped the Nazis. They were violent and everything, and so they were a real thing. And if you talk about the White Rose Society, everybody should know about that.
Yeah.
And about Sophie and her brother Hans, who were executed, beheaded.
Yep.
Who were part of that group, and they were Hitler youth when they grew up and everything, and then they realized stuff was wrong, and they got caught. And
they were pamphleteering.
Right. Can I just read her last words?
Sure. This is from Sophie from the White Rose Society.
Yeah. How can we expect righteousness to prevail, son? How can we expect righteousness to prevail when there is hardly anyone willing to give himself up individually to the righteous cause? It is such a splendid day today, and I have to go. But how many have to die on the battlefield in these days? How many young, promising lives? What does my death matter if our acts, thousands are warned and awarded? Among the student body, there will certainly be a revolt. And and then she was beheaded by. It's another story. This guy Reichardt, who was the executioner for the Nazi government, and in the end, the Americans made him execute his Nazi bosses.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to that.
Serious stuff. Bill, thanks for sharing that. The White Rose Society, if you haven't read the story, it's worth plugging it into a search engine and reading
Malloy
it.
was big on that.
Say what?
Mike Malloy was big on that.
Yeah, Mike Malloy. Yeah, well, and when Mike Malloy and I were both on IE America Radio back in 2003. There was a friend of ours in Ohio or Indiana who started a website called whiterosesociety.org, as I recall. And she was, it's a trans woman who was cataloging all of our shows. And I don't know if it's still there or not. I don't know if she's still doing it. But I used to support them financially and promote what they were doing. I'd have to look it up now. But the White Rose Society is a big deal. Bill, thanks a lot for the call. Pauline in Los Angeles. Hey, Pauline, what's up?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
Hey, let's see. I wanted to bring up an important thing that we need to target Fox News more if we're going to really make a difference. Because when it comes down to it, this is a cultural fight. This is a cultural war that they've been prepared for and preparing for decades and decades. And it's not going to do us, we're at risk of losing everything if the cities that are being, invaded, that Trump is sending troops to, if these things are not getting onto Fox News, because really Fox News still has very, very far reach, more so than any of these other internet things or OWN or whatever.
Yeah, more people watch Fox News than MSNBC and CNN combined.
Yeah, I mean, I have family members that live in red states or red, towns, and they're not political people, but they just, but they just want to fit in, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just want to go along, and so they don't really realize how much they're not seeing. They're just not even getting it. And so one of the things I recommend is, things like slogans like Fox News is trash.
Yeah.
Now, the word trash is very familiar to a lot of people.
Yeah.
They remember that. Nobody wants to be called trash. People living in rural areas.
I like that, Pauline. I like that. Also, some people are setting their grandparents' TVs with the child locks on Fox News. Thanks, Pauline.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's 18 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with you in just a second. Stay with us. And welcome back. I'm picking up your calls here. John in Minneapolis. Hey, John, what's up?
Yeah, I wanted to say that with these protests, the No Kings protests that are coming up, we have to be really cognizant of provocateurs because the government used provocateurs for decades, really, and they used them in the Republican convention. I remember one in particular because Amy Goodman actually covered that issue where there was a paid provocateur who was paid indirectly by the FBI using our tax dollars to encourage people to throw Molotov cocktails. And then also here, I think with the George Floyd protests, the vandalism and acts of arson were done by Proud Boys and other far-right wing groups.
Yep.
And I don't think that the media really covered that. It was sent to the FBI, and I can't remember.
No, it's well documented that the Umbrella Man, the guy who first started smashing windows in Minneapolis, which is where it first started, was an off-duty cop.
Yep, and that is another issue. We have off-duty cops. We had the police union here that was run by a mafia boss, Bob Kroll. And, he did not represent at all this city. Most of the people live in outstate Minnesota. They did damage to a lot of the journalists' vehicles. They fired a rubber bullet at a photojournalist from Toronto. She lost her eye as a result.
Yeah.
But we need to... when we go to these demonstrations, we have to really be cognizant of that and use your phone to cover it and, call them out.
Yeah, I think there's a whole new generation that's figuring this out. I mean, I remember when I was 16, 17 years old at MSU, there was this one guy who would come to the SDS meetings and basically any protest. And he would always be talking about we need to burn down the ROTC building, the ROTC building, the military thing. And it was his thing, and he was constantly trying to get people to burn down the ROTC building. And years later, like maybe 5, 6, 8 years later, something like that, one of the guys who was in SDS, and I think it was Brad Lang, but I could be wrong, it might have been Mike Price, but one of these guys got a hold of our Red Squad files. This was the Michigan State Police Department had an intelligence division. They called it the Red Squad. I probably went back to the Joe McCarthy days. And they got our files, and we discovered that this guy was actually a state police officer.
Yep. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that happens, just all around. And I wanted to add, as far as the White Rose, there was... Alexander Shmorel was beatified by the Russian Orthodox Church, which I think is kind of interesting, considering what's going on in Russia right now. And there's a shrine to him in, I believe it's in Munich. But, that takes a lot of courage to do that. I knew people who were captured by the Nazis in France because they were part of the underground. Inevitably, people would turn them in. Yeah. But we can't, we have a lot to lose.
We do. But courage is contagious, John. We've got to stand up. John, I'm out of time here. I'm sorry, but thank you. Well said. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com.
They call me a radical, They shout and they sneer, but I'm fighting for a future that's honest and clear for the worker, the student, the sick and the poor, for justice and dignity. Who could want more? I'm a far left radical, proud and unbowed, raising my voice, I'll sing it out loud. For freedom, for fairness, for love, we all know this is the far left radical manifesto.
24 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. Yes, our manifesto. We want expanded Social Security. We want Medicare for everybody. We want free college. And we want to tax the billionaires. Yeah, that's the far left manifesto. Alan in DeKalb, Illinois. Hey, Alan, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I just want to say that each and every time we hear the word Antifa, our knee-jerk counterpunch should be, what about PROFA?
As in pro-fascist?
The single biggest threat to Constitution and our democracy.
Yeah.
And if they ask what the heck PROFA is, just tell them it's the pro-fascist movement that MAGA is pushing in our faces every damn day.
Yep. Well
Right?
said. Well said. Can't contradict that one.
And also, I just want to encourage every American listening to pivot from engaging in victimization outrage to just go on the offensive every chance you get and be the opposition.
Yeah, we have
do whatever you can do.
We have to stand up. If we don't defend our country, we're going to lose it. Thank you, Alan. Well said. George in Crystal Lake, Illinois. Hey, George, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Just wondering, we know Trump was speaking with Netanyahu before the presidential election. The similarities between, what Reagan did with Carter, with the hostages, and, basically just looking at a few months longer time frame here. But to me, looks like the same thing. And
I don't think so. Because this started during the Biden administration, and for about 2 years, Joe Biden let Netanyahu get away with just bombing the crap out of Gaza. I think there's plenty of blame to go around here, George. I don't think you can politicize this.
Well, I know that, but supposedly the framework of this agreement was drawn up by Biden. And now they're using it. So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't care who is the author of the framework. If it works, if it actually succeeds in bringing peace to the Middle East, I'm all in favor of it. I'm just very skeptical. My sense of it is that Netanyahu's a criminal, or at least an accused criminal, indicted criminal, and a liar. And I just, I think he's going to play Trump just the same way Putin's playing Trump. He wants to keep destroying Gaza, Palestinians, and he wants to appropriate Gaza and the rest of the West Bank, just like Putin wants to take all of Ukraine. And both of them are giving Trump happy talk. And, maybe this is real. Maybe this is going to happen. But somehow I doubt there's going to be a two-state solution at the end of it. George, which I think is the only thing that's going to really solve this problem. And I suspect at the end of this thing, you're going to see a Trump Tower in Gaza, which is just going to be an abomination. George, thanks for the call. It's 27 minutes past the hour. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where despair is not an option. I'll be right back with more of your calls. Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Stand Up, Struggle Forward by Sanyika Shakur. This is a book that was written back in the late 90s, but it's still very, very timely. This is from the second chapter titled Class Antagonisms Inside the Fundamental Contradiction of National Oppression. Having just passed the 19th and quickly approaching the 20th anniversary of the LA Rebellion, we should be reminded here of what Rodney King whimpered as he stood in front of a bank of microphones surrounded by class enemies and neo-colonial politicians. We should remember how he'd been dressed in that non-threatening cardigan sweater white shirt and black tie, how his hair had been tortured into submission by a jerry curl. We should reflect as well upon how timid and spooked he looked, and on how concerned and stern those who flanked him were as well. That was a Kodak moment. It was staged to foster an image of contrition and resignation, submission, a victim. Rodney King had been led to believe, through a bourgeois sense of reasoning, that the rebellion was really about him, that the reason new Africans and Mexicanos took to the streets of South Central was the result of his filmed beating. That, of course, is typical of mechanical bourgeois thinking. What it's not typical of, however, is someone from the hood. And this cuts both ways. No one in the hoods and barrios ever thought it was about Rodney King. We'd all seen the film over and over like everyone else, but that was par for the course. We'd always seen that, long before anybody caught it on tape. Actually, we'd experienced much more than that. Why, it's safe to say that the hoods had gone to war with each other in vicious waves of internal, intra-class combat for much less than that, though because of a general colonial mentality which prevents the challenging of bottom-up oppression, the same hood forces will not, in any systemic way, wage war on the pigs, or for freedom, land, and socialism. Rodney King alone, and of his own accord, would not have thought to hold a press conference to ask the asinine question, in the form of a whimpering request, can't we just all get along? The fact of the matter is, we are getting along. New Africans and Mexicanos are getting along just fine. What we couldn't understand was why he was admonishing us for getting at the exploiters of our communities. The impression he gave, with his handler's hands up his back like a ventriloquist troll, was that a race riot was going on, as if we had all begun to kill each other or burn and rob each other's homes. His handlers compelled him to send up a false flag, a diversion. But you see, this was the very thing that exposed the class interests and reactionary politics of the Uncle Toms that had been designated to handle him, and by extension, us. Let's go back for a minute. Let's talk social development, aka history. There exists a fundamental contradiction in our lives that, like an elephant in the room, no one wants to acknowledge. As a consequence of the war waged upon various African nations by European powers, those of us captured and kidnapped were taken out of our own self-determining social developments and violently forced into Euro-American history. This is not simply a clever play on words. This is a reality. We lost the ability to control our own destiny. Read that again. From that time until now, the fundamental basic contradiction between the U.S. oppressor nation and our own oppressed and colonized nation has been the governing imperialist relationship, which is to say, us not being in control of the qualitative factors that determine our lives as a people, as a nation. Our tradition of struggle against this fundamental contradiction has taken many forms, some hidden or obscured, some open and hostile. But all of these have been open to resolve the fundamental contradiction and to regain our independence. While there have been some bona fide struggles to resolve the contradiction, there have also been reactionary neocolonial struggles waged by internal enemies loyal to the oppressor nation and culture that have tried time and time again to subvert and control our destiny for the benefit of the capitalists. They've come among us, always imposed from above, stirring up emotions and giving lip service to progress, equality, justice, and prosperity. These always within the colonial confines of the oppressor's arrangements, and none collectively ever materialize. Because without a resolution of the fundamental contradiction, that is the freeing of our productive forces from U.S. imperialism and the governing of our own affairs, we'll remain a minority within the American system as opposed to a majority in our own, and subjected to the established bourgeois social contract, i.e. colonialism, neo and post. We can parade all through the empire with black congressmen, black mayors, black governors, black police chiefs, black Supreme Court justices, hell, even a black president. And absolutely nothing will alter the genocidal relationship that governs our national oppression here, because the blacks are part of the colonial apparatus. They have made a strategic alliance with the capitalist imperialists to act as go-betweens in our oppression and exploitation. This is a conscious class stand. The black petty bourgeois is not innocently confused, like, say, Mrs. Jackson across the street is, about our national oppression, about the existence and subjugation of New Africa. They are well-read, have traveled in our experience. They've just chosen sides against us and in favor of our historical enemies. And the sooner we recognize and internalize this, the better off we'll be. Black ain't nothing but a color, As a designation of our national identity, it has played out. It is a superficial understanding at best and a foolish and dangerous analysis at worst. We have no collective control over the qualitative factors which determine our lives. We do not, in other words, control our destiny, not as a people or a state. The book is Stand Up, Struggle Forward by Sanyika Shakur. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag You're It.
It starts with a whisper, a poison in the well. They call their foes traitors, say the free press fell. The strong man rises cloaked in the law, writing new orders, erasing what we saw. Courts are packed, the truth's on trial. Votes are stolen with a gerrymandered smile. An iron fist dressed up as decree, selling fear as security. It's not a march, it's a slide, every step justified. By the time you see the bars, you're inside. Autocratic breakthrough, the glass is shattered now.
35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back. So this is hysterical. Donald Trump gets a $700 million, or whatever it is, $400 million jet from Qatar. We're now spending $1 billion to make it all fancy so that when he leaves the White House, he'll have $1 billion jet to take with him, which is insane and an emolument. It's a violation of the Constitution. He's breaking the law. But he took this bribe from Qatar, and what is Qatar? You know, everybody's been sitting around going, what's Qatar going to get in exchange for this? Well, the other shoe dropped about an hour ago. Qatar is getting an Air Force base in Idaho, for God's sake. Bright red Idaho, where they don't like Muslims. This is Amy Mack, who is the editor-in-chief of RAIR, an organization that advocates for the U.S. to return to Judeo-Christian values. She says, 24 years after foreign nationals trained in our flight schools flew planes into our buildings, our leaders are inviting their financiers to train inside our bases? We're being led by officials who no longer recognize or refuse to name the enemy they're inviting into our own backyard. But, Amy, Donald got his jet. He's got to give them back something. You know, with a bribe, you get the bribe and then you give what the bribe was for. Laura Loomer is hysterical. She says, well, I guess this isn't going to happen since we just gave the Muslim Brotherhood an air base in Idaho. So much for my decade of hard work trying to protect Americans from the threat of Islamic terror. She goes on, no foreign country should have a military base on U.S. soil. By the way, never thought I'd agree with Laura Loomer, but I do. She says, I've never felt more betrayed by the GOP. Laura Loomer goes on to say, Qatar is one of the biggest funders of Islamic terror in the entire world, so much so that the Saudis and Emiratis find Qatar to be toxic. This betrayal stings. We are losing our country. Red Eagle Politics just couldn't even believe it. Just like, oh my God, this has got to be something that Antifa made up, right? He says, we aren't giving Argentina a free $20 billion handout, and we're not building an Air Force base for Qatar in Idaho. The amount of dishonest lunacy in this app is reaching new heights. You wrote that on X. Yeah, right. Good luck. And Ned Blount, who's an Utah state senator, points out that Idaho Republicans have been crowing about legislation that they passed similar to legislation in Utah that, quote, blocks foreign ownership of land in their state. Well, it's not foreign-owned land. It's going to be American. This is a U.S. military base that we are giving to Qatar. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that special? You give Donald Trump an airplane, he'll give you an Air Force base in the United States where you can, I don't know, plan a terror attack or something. Or maybe it's just a good thing. The Fifth Fleet is based out of Qatar, so, this may not be, strategically, this may not be a terrible thing, but there is no benefit to the United States rationale that I've seen any. Now, the reporting's probably going to come later in the day, and we'll hear all the excuses and all the reasons, but wild stuff. It's just wild stuff. Same thing with the United Arab Emirates. Don Jr. and Trump's Steve Witkoff, his real estate billionaire buddy from New York State. Don Jr. and Steve Witkoff's kids, Don and Eric, and Witkoff's kids create this Bitcoin company or this crypto company. And then Steve Witkoff goes over to the United Arab Emirates, and they want to buy these NVIDIA chips, these very, very super high-tech chips that are never supposed to be sold outside the United States because, of national security. And Witkoff and Trump say, hey, give our kids $2 billion for their company, $2 billion. $1 million 1,000 times. Give them $2 billion, and we'll sell you all the chips you want. We'll sell you hundreds of thousands of chips, and you can resell them to the Chinese if you want. Has anybody figured out that these guys are selling off our country? Trump puts, tariffs on China, and so China says, screw that, we're not going to buy your soybeans anymore. So we got soybean farmers in the United States who are going bankrupt to the point that we're running live aid concerts like we did back in the 80s when Reagan bankrupted the farmers. And so what does Trump do? He gives $20 billion. Steve Witkoff, it's Scott Bessent, his billionaire Treasury Secretary, has a best friend or a good close buddy who invested a whole pile of, billions of dollars down in Argentina, and it's going down the tubes. So Bessent comes along and says, hey, let's give Argentina $20 billion to stabilize their currency so my friend's investment doesn't get tanked. And what does Milei use that $20 billion for? He turns around and says, we used to be collecting tariff revenue on our soybean sales to China, but we're not going to do that anymore because now we've got $20 billion, so we don't need to collect that money. So we're going to go tariff-free on our soybeans, and suddenly China says, hey, cool, screw America. We'll buy all our soybeans, screw the American farmers. We'll buy all our soybeans from Argentina now. When are Republicans going to figure out that this administration, that the corruption of this administration is screwing their own voters? Theodore in Everett, Washington. Hey, Theodore, what's on your mind?
Thank you, Tom, for taking my call. I just want to remind everyone about the whole Epstein, because he was going strong. Everyone was talking about him, like with the trends going around. He peaked mostly around July 13th, but suddenly he has been going down. Let's see, what's the percentage? But like,
are you talking about mentions of Epstein or popularity of just mentions in the press of Epstein?
Like Google searches,
right.
And mostly through Google searches and other trends.
Mm-hmm.
He's been going down, but like a little bit later when they got the birthday card came out, he did peak a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But he's just been going down. People, the whole 2-week phase thing.
People are exhausted by it. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
This 2-week thing that Trump learned when he was doing Celebrity Apprentice, that the attention span of the American public is 2 weeks. That's it. If you can weather anything for 2 weeks, you're good.
Yeah. Well, we went past 2 weeks. We went past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's only so much time that it can stay, and it's kind of going down. We need more mentions of it. We need more people talking about it, because if this falls out, this is one of the things that got Republicans and people on the right to sway to the left.
Yeah.
Was with Epstein, because also without releasing the files, like, because they're not exposing the big like lefties.
No, I get it, but it's going to pick up again when Mike Johnson tries to change the House rules around discharge petitions, so that when Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in, she'll be the 218th vote, and he's trying to change the rules so that it takes more than 218 votes. I think it's going to backfire on him, but we'll see. Theodore, thanks for pointing that out. That's fascinating. Lisa in Santa Rosa. Hey, Lisa, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. So last night when I'm watching C-SPAN, there was a lawyer who was supposedly representing Portland, Oregon, and she was representing Portland to the 9th District Court, telling them why Portland did not need, Trump-directed military on the streets of Portland.
Right.
She was, let me just say, sorry about this lady, but she was the worst lawyer in the universe. If she was, I don't know, I got so frustrated with how, misdirected she let everybody get, how little information she had. It was kind of like she was like representing Portland, Oregon, but she was...
Couldn't she just say there's no crisis here in Portland?
She said she was trying to say we don't need them here, and they were asking her questions, and she was totally inept. That's all I got to tell you. I had to turn it off. I got so mad.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Sorry about that, you guys in Portland. Yeah. Bye.
I'm sorry to hear that, Lisa. Lisa, thanks for the report. I had no idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, good talking to you. It's 45 minutes past the hour. I'll be back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. It's Anything Goes weekend here on the Thom Hartmann program. Speaking the truth, J.D. Vance would really rather you didn't know all about. And informing the world from our bunker here in war-torn Portland that, if you're worried about the furries, then come to Portland. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
I mean, that's what we're presenting to ICE, right? We got furries dancing. We got, 84-year-old people getting beat up by ICE. I mean, that's about it. And welcome back. Robin in Kingston, Washington. Hey, Robin, what's on your mind today?
Well, Tom, I'm going to just chip in a little bit about the pre-testing versus protesting concept, but the essence of the call is words, which is a vote at home. I'll get to that in a minute. First, I just want to say yay to Portland. Okay, the oligarchs do not want a large city like Portland, run by people for its people. They just don't want that, and that's not part of their scheme. So Portland is doing this really, really right, and setting a great example, and whatever. So I just really am encouraging, if the Democratic Party and Democrats rallied for something instead of only protesting against something, the entire landscape of the Democratic Party would change. So here's my statement to those who, and I want you to protest. Fantastic, okay? If you have energy and any resources or enthusiasm left after you have protesting all of these months, please, people, let's get into repairing and updating our voting system. And the concept, instead of using the word vote by mail, which is great, you actually said this, vote at home, and you said how much you love, and I love it too. I'm in Washington State. Voting home, you sit down, you start to read it through, this information. It's really, really wonderful. So I just want to support, thank you, Portland, for setting a positive example, because they're pre-testing. They're saying, I want something better. I'm not, I'm not just here for protesting.
Well said, Robin.
Anyway,
Well
That's
said.
all I wanted to say, Tom.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot. Good talking to you, and have a great weekend. Bye. Bobby in La Puente, California. Hey, Bobby, what's up?
Oh, I had a comment on Carlos. Hey, Vato, quit watching Fox TV or whatever you want to call it.
He clearly
Tune
is.
in to Radio Free Speech TV.
Yeah.
PBS this weekend has the documentary on the Roosevelts from the 1800s all the way to his death. Okay, a lot of information. KPFK, Carlos. You got it, Carlos? We're the same color skin, Vato. So be kind to yourself and listen to your heart. The truth will set you free.
Yeah.
And that quick thing, Tom, I want to thank you for the geeky science about dehydration. I'm telling you, thank you. Thank you. That's the only way I can thank you on the air.
Yeah. No, I'm you know, it was a shock to me to discover, you know, I had been noticing, you know, subtle changes that were kind of concerning, but you know, without getting into a whole lot of detail, but you know, now I realize it's all from dehydration. I was being constantly dehydrated and didn't realize it because your body just doesn't tell you anymore when you're older than 60.
Yeah, I just did a ceremony last Saturday, a nippy.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
4 rounds, and I didn't even drink water.
Oh man, you got to drink water when you're sweating.
You're still alive.
Yeah, you got to drink
Tom,
water.
Thank you.
Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for a stroke or a heart attack, Bobby. So, but yeah, I do sweats too. I don't have a sweat lodge, but I you know, long hot baths, same thing. And Bobby,
that's once a month. You're invited. Matteo's invited. So
cool.
Say hi to Louise.
Will do. Give our love to Vivian too. Thank you, Bobby. Thanks for the call. Good talking to you. Bobby in La Puente. It's 10 minutes before the hour. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds, and we'll continue with your calls. Stay tuned. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Human beings have a couple of unique characteristics. The first is that we can be very tender and loving and concerned and caring toward people we perceive as being our group, us. We can also be extraordinarily violent against people that we consider to be them, if we think of them or this other as a threat. You know, probably the classic example of this is Adolf Hitler convincing Germans that, you know, Jews were a threat to them and good Germans going along with the Holocaust. Well, this othering is built into our DNA. This is, you know, ancient stuff. And the Republican Party, since the time of Nixon, when he started, you know, picking up the white racist vote after Democrats laid it down in the 60s, Republicans have been using this to try to other minorities in America as a political strategy. And this is really deadly stuff. There's a whole op-ed about it over at HartmannReport.com. Is othering human nature's deadliest instinct? Check it out. 51 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here. Sandy in Nelma, Wisconsin. Hey, Sandy, what's on your mind today?
Hi. I was going to go backwards here with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and our Social Security numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious if you think that once we get this dictator out of office, God willing, that we will all have to be issued new Social Security numbers because they have all of our info.
They do. They are keeping them on an insecure cloud server in the cloud. Apparently,
right? So
according to reports,
they can
Big Balls has them.
Issue new ones so they don't have information to that.
I know. It's crazy what they've done. It's just crazy. But yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, they had to do that with Medicare numbers. You know, your Medicare number used to be your Social Security number, and then, you know, they got out there. You know, the Social Security numbers got so widely published. But now, yeah, you're right. This is just knocking down the door. Sandy, thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Appreciate the call. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Happy Friday, Tom, and thank you for your wit, eloquence, and determination in these very challenging times. And by the way, those are the adjectives Robert Reich is using to describe the 4 Democratic governors who he believes are leading the resistance to Trump's fascism, and those would be Governor Pritzker, Newsom, Westmore, and Josh Shapiro. And Tom, as I've previously said, I think we need Schumer, Jeffries, and other Democratic leaders in Washington to follow the lead of these governors, get out of their comfort zones and sound the alarm on Trump and Stephen Miller's quest for absolute power. Coupling an anti-oligarchy economic populism with a strong anti-autocracy, pro-democracy position, it's not only the key to winning in 26 and 28, it's also very important to the public debate over this showdown, over this shutdown. You know, this isn't time for business as usual. And, you know, when we have troops on the streets in major American cities and an entire apartment building is being sieged in a military-style operation, that has to be amplified into the national discussion. I'm sure you agree. And where would you put that in the context of, in your, referring to your Hartmann report today? Isn't this reminiscent of the Nazis ransacking apartment buildings looking for Jewish people?
Yes. Yeah. We're there. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah.
And ignoring the rule of law. I mean, you know, what they did in Chicago without a warrant, kicking indoors, stealing people's property, bringing naked American citizen children out to shiver in the cold. It's criminal what they did, and they need to be held to account. So, yeah, I'm with you. Jeff, thank you very much. Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, happy Frias Day. What's up?
Happy Frias Day. Real quick, tonight on C-SPAN at 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock is a new program called Ceasefire, where there's an effort to find common ground between Democrats and Republicans. It's the salvation of this country is going to be Republicans getting away from the blind faith obedience to the Trump MAGA agenda. And I think Mike Pence and Rahm Emanuel are going to be the people guests tonight.
Really?
Yeah, so people, let's encourage. Now, the Oklahoma governor having reservations about sending the troops, and Marjorie Taylor Greene breaking ranks, and Ted Cruz, Jimmy Kimmel supporting Jimmy Kimmel coming back on. The breaks are starting to occur in this group think in this Trump cult, and so tonight I wanted to point out, people watch, and this might, if they let people call in, sometimes they do on C-SPAN. You know, we might use this program to encourage Republicans to break away from the MAGA cult.
Yeah,
and
I'm with you.
So 7 o'clock and 10 o'clock tonight on C-SPAN.
Thanks for the PSA, Keno. Appreciate it. Paul in St. Charles, Missouri. Hey, Paul, I have a little less than a minute. You got a quick one? Till the end of the show.
I'll try to make it quick, Tom. First thing I wanted to tell you by way of thanks is that you came into our lives, me and my wife, Jenny, with Air America. And you came into our prayers when Louise had her cancer scare.
Wow.
My mom's name was Louise. Very beautiful name. I just wanted you to know if you'd seen on the CNN on the Internet that a former GOP election official has bought Dominion voting systems.
Yeah, I saw that last night. I don't know quite yet what to make of it yet, but it is concerning. In fact, I clipped the article and forwarded it to Greg Palast and said, what do you think? Haven't heard back from him yet.
Excellent. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd do, is dig into it further.
Yeah, I caught it last night. I didn't mention it today because I haven't seen confirmation and I don't know the details, but we'll get into that next week. Paul, thanks for the call. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate it, and thank you for your kind words and your prayers. It's much appreciated. Special thanks to Louise Hartmann, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jay LeBlanc, Jeremy Peterson, Connor Arroyo, Carna Verde, Martha Salinas, Mateo Robertson, Diane Russell, and Ruben Michaels, all the fine people who work on this program. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, be good to yourself and the people around you. And I will be back here with you on Monday. Be good.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!